practically every one of the top 40 records being played on every radio station in the United States is a communication to the children to take a trip, to cop out, to groove. The psychedelic jackets on the record albums have their own hidden messages.
Special question. We don't want you to smoke genetically modified ganja. We want you to smoke the real thing. We want you to smoke the natural herb. Some call it marijuana, some call it sensimilla, some call it lamb's bread, and some people call it ganja.
Welcome to another edition of the Adam Dunn Show. I am your host, Adam Dunn, and I am not in the studio with, this is not Cheesecake Lady, by the way. She has not gotten this grizzle in the last month. As it would have been bad. It would have been a rough one, Jessica, if that was the case. But no, we've got Rev P back exactly where he was last time. And he was probably ranting and raving, because that's what he does. He doesn't know. He thinks he doesn't. He thinks he's real quiet and stuff, but don't worry, you can talk. It's fine. I'm not going to hold you. I'm not going to hold you that tight on the leash. Be like, no talking. But no, it's just because you have that voice. You have a voice that's very gets in there. I mean, if you were singing a song, it might be a cool thing. But since you're not, it's kind of like, oh, dude, it's that guy. Wow. But anyway, Rev P's back, promoting the new show next week. Trog. He brought me some merch. He brought me some merch, which will all be available here. Merch will be available. Posters will be available. I'm trying to twist his arm to sell all his original shit, but I don't know. It's gonna take some. I'm gonna have to go to the man himself and say, Trog, just tell him it's okay. You're an artist. You can make more art. It's not like at the end of the world. See, I'm holding to it now. Like,
it's not an art sale. It's an art exhibition.
It's fine. Sell it all. Sell it. I'm sure Trog will agree. He'll be like, yes, you're right, Adam. Sell that shit. Anyway, next week.
It could all be replaced. So.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. Imagine just pretend you were
These
like...
are number ones, though.
I know.
That can't be replaced.
No, that can't be. But that's the cool part. The show is definitely... And I was impressed. I saw... He just brought them down today. We're going to categorize them, make sure we know how much they're worth. And then we're going to sell everything. Fucking damn it.
Excellent.
Next week, Friday here, the 15th it is, or 14th? What is it?
I think we said the 15th we're going
15th. I think that's the day. Yeah. Anyway, it's going to be a cool show. And then later we'll have Jessica hopefully rolling through. If we hear the pitter-patter of the dog feet coming ahead, and then we'll hear the door slam, we'll know. You'll run up, lock up behind her. Oh, actually, then we have La Plata Labs. Josh may be coming through, too, so... Who knows? You never know. You never know with our guests. We either have too many or not enough, right?
Hey,
that's the key to the organization around here. It's like, yeah, oh, dude, I got 9 guests. Damn it! And speaking of which, so me and Gene's probably not going to come on the show today just because he said he needs a whole show, and that's cool. That's good. So maybe next week we're going to do. I mean, I don't know for the whole show, but 2 hours at least. We'll do a good 2-hour set with him. But we never know. And then definitely James is going to call in. That's a given. Even though he's moving house, he's scrubbing floors. He said so. He's literally on his hands and knees scrubbing floors right now, listening to the show, bitching and moaning. Man, I got to call in. Hopefully you got the sound. Hopefully the sound isn't all shitty because he's in a big hollow, empty room now.
Oh yeah.
You know how that sounds.
Oh yeah.
It's like
echo.
It sounds terrible. It sounds like when you have that, it's either the best day of your life because you're moving into a new house. It's so sick, and you call somebody like, "Dude, it's awesome." It just sounds terrible or it's like misery that they just took all your shit. You have nothing left. I got nothing left.
I'm only a few hours away from getting out of here. Let's hurry this up.
Right.
It's
exactly.
dreary usually when you move out.
Nothing worse than moving, man. That is the worst feeling.
You can definitely find your true friends.
And Amanda Chicago Lewis will be calling in about 45 minutes and talking about the article that she wrote, which is about monopolizing cannabis and these companies out there that she kind of cracked the code on, which was very cool. If you haven't read the article, there's a link on the if you have Facebook and you checked out our thing, there is a link on there for her article, and it's definitely worth reading it before you listen to her because you might even understand what the hell's going on for once. No, but it's with our friends. And the reason that it was interesting because she reached out to us. I mean, I met her at a show, I think. And so she wanted to be on the show, which is great. And then on top of that, she interviewed Mowgli Holmes from Phylos, who we've had on the show. So it was like kind of like, okay, we know some of the players, we do know the backstory a little bit. But if you read the article, you're like, okay, she definitely got in at the right spots because she's very well versed and she can put it down on paper and make you go like, oh yeah, especially somebody like myself who's been at these parties and she's describing.
You probably had all the puzzle pieces. She just put them together.
Well, she doesn't. Yeah, I mean, she was going in a direction that I didn't even know existed, obviously. But I mean, I figured it's happening. But the fact that there are entities out there that think they're gonna take over this plant, which we already we know this is a mission. It's always gonna be a mission. But unlike the 5 flavors of corn that we were okay with. I mean, none of us are going to be happy with the regulated
Once they've cracked
flavors of the government, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or of the people who, not even the government, just big corp, who
I
have
think it's going to
decided
go
to.
back to where seeds are going to be more expensive than the plant because the seeds are going to not be the thing that is monopolized.
Right.
So.
Well, maybe. I mean, plants will always have their inherent value because it's just less work, of course, and certain things, but it's going to be just, one of those, they can fuck up anything, and of course they're going to fuck that up. You know what I mean? It's going to be like, to the point where we're going to be all like, people are going to say, what the hell are you guys even wasting your time for? It's
exactly.
Like, yeah, because that's not weed what you're smoking.
Yeah.
That's some bullshit, you know what I mean?
Well, it's kind of what we went through back in the day when we were smoking the really good stuff, and then the Mexican flooded. And we all looked at it and goes, what the hell is this?
What year was that?
Back in the 70s.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, there was, the thing about Mexican weed is like, it's interesting because when you're there and you see it growing, it's always looking pretty fire.
Right.
And it's just the processing that was involved.
Well,
that
I've always
turned it
said
into
they
shit
don't care about quality. They grow it for quantity. And, they smash it down, they package it so they can ship it.
Yeah.
But the genetics was always good. I mean, the plant is a beautiful thing.
Well, that was the thing. And I say, like, when you grew your own weed and you realize, like, you could take, if you're in the right climate, you could take even Mexican, from Mexican seeds, and sometimes, half your weight with seeds. So you might as well try to do something with it. So
yeah, exactly.
And a lot of times it was swag, but there was always definitely winners. And now there's so much. It's over. It's not like they're sitting down there not realizing there's a huge market of genetics out there.
They're upset with what we're doing up here.
Well, yeah. I mean, they're upset with not being able to sell that that shitty weed. That's for sure.
Well, they're having to get good genetics and start growing better weed.
And they are. And I'm saying this. I know people who did it in the '90s, and so it's not like they didn't learn it and then unlearn it. I mean,
right.
They moved ahead with it and did their own thing, and I'm sure they picked up high times and went through it and said, oh, look at this, and they flew over to Amsterdam when they had to, or to Canada, and so that's the problem. So now there's not really that,
It's not the swag it used to be.
Yeah, and there was a time period before that when there was actually pretty good zones that had their niche, you know what I mean? Like you go to Oaxaca and get that big, long sativa Oaxacan, but now who the fuck knows what you're getting, you know what I mean? Now you're like, oh, great, it's a Oaxacan power plant. You're like, it's like, oh, I got it from, Nirvana Seeds. Like, really? Like,
really?
So that just kind of, so that ruins the local genetic gene pool. Oh, great. So, I'm surprised that Cheesecake has not contacted us and given us the whereabouts of her. But it's all right. It's all right.
That article right there.
What is that article? Hold on, wait a minute. What article? You can't just point at articles and talk about. So is this something we want to read? Teen marijuana use falls to 22-year low. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Reading off the cannabis here, it says teen marijuana use falls to 22-year low. Federal report says.
Federal report, which is good.
Yeah.
Kind of goes against what Session has been preaching, huh?
Oh yeah. Well, they always. So what does it say? What's
the last time the monthly teen marijuana use was this low was in 1994. Last year, 6.5% of adolescents used marijuana on a monthly basis, according to the latest national survey on drug use and health. Adult use is rising, on the other hand.
Well, we're bringing in the seniors.
Oh, yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
the seniors are waking up
Oh, yeah.
on that end.
Because they're able to trade in a whole bag of prescription drugs for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's what's going on there. But yeah, so it's been the nation's marijuana use among the nation's 12 to 17-year-olds dropped to the lowest level in more than 2 decades. So that's a good thing.
And that's exactly the interesting part too. Is exactly what happened in Holland when I was there. That was always the sort of selling point to me, to other people about explaining about the reality there. It was like, well, actually, the teens here smoke less because it's legal, because it's not cool.
Right.
And only, like the depressed dorks want to go over there and smoke weed. It's like,
Right.
what? It's kind of a weird vibe. It's like, oh, yeah, you have to be like real depressed and then you smoke weed. Like, no, it's the opposite. It's
Right.
like, come on now. But that's a smaller number. It's like, it's way smaller than here. It was like 3 to 6% depending on what area of Holland, you know what I
Well,
mean?
obviously, with the steps we've made in legalization, it's going down. Those numbers are showing that it is going down. So,
Well,
we are
yeah,
making
I mean, there's
progress.
kids. I mean, there's people my age who have kids who are, 19, 20, who are like, "Pff, whatever, I mean, because the dad is such a stoner. They're like, forget about it, like, you know what I mean? That's how they grew up with that. They want to, like, they're all into computers
I
or
got
whatever.
quite a
Like,
few friends that are like that. They've got kids that just like, I'm
Yeah.
not in.
well, and that is the kind of the rule in a way. It all skips generations, and I wouldn't say it's any kind of golden rule, but I've seen it in obviousness as far as like, unless you're, some people follow when they have good role models. Of course, that's a good thing. But when you have bad role models, you're supposed to kind of like, oh, okay,
What
maybe
I've
I
seen
shouldn't
is
do that.
The next generation that's getting into it, they're entrepreneurial, and they're using their education to get into the cannabis business, the cannabis industry side of it.
What's that?
The younger generation,
Oh yeah,
the kids, that's what I mean, the kids that are getting into following their parents' footsteps, they've been around it all their life. So they went to college, got a marketing degree or something, and they're entrepreneurial. And it's a good thing because they're not only creating work for themselves, but they're creating jobs as well.
yes. This is all stuff we're going to be talking about with her. Because did you read the article already before?
I got to a little bit of it. I was about to kind of catch up right now.
Okay, that's good.
Yep.
No, I can. Okay, good. See, now I'm all like one of those guys. Did you read it? Did you read it? Because when you read something, you're like, finally, I read something. No, but usually, it's especially with cannabis. There's so many like classic. Everybody's like pun master or whatever right out of the gate when anybody who writes about cannabis, it's always like, I got to throw like 3,500 puns.
Right.
Over here.
Innuendos on stoners and whatever.
Yeah, which makes it kind of, it kind of like deflates it right out of the gate. It's like you're hoping for. I mean, of course,
Well,
a
who
good
wants
one,
to read through a bashing?
a good one is okay once in a while because you're like, yeah, that guy's a stoner. You're like, you can just tell it's a good positive twist on it.
But
when
most
it's-
articles that are written, it ends up being a stoner bashing.
Well, yeah, and or it's just like really stupid. Like it's like better get the M&Ms, or just like a dumb kind of stereotype.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's just like we were talking about last week, and everybody was complaining that we love that show. But I'm saying just in general that the fact that the media is now, it's like the hot new thing. It's going to be on everything now. It's going to be like
The Netflix show.
that show and all those things
Oh,
are going
crazy.
to be like normal now because people are like, oh, they have a dispensary down the road. So of course, it's like there's going to be some common threads going on all around. Not just those shows, but like I'm sure there's going to be a plethora of them because there already was a wave of them at that time when it was about the
Weed started it.
Yeah, but and
Back on
then
HBO.
there was the reality, like here, reality there, different shows, this one, that one, show in Colorado, and it was all real kind of like simple. And then they had Stanley's on there, and they had and we had all the different stories back when
Right.
and it's fun to watch because you see like within 2 years they look super dated already. You know what I mean? And then Vice came through and did their coverage, and other people did their coverage. And the thing is, it's like, whenever they film something like that, it's like sometimes they'll do a good job. Usually they also do the same thing. There's always like, okay, we got to have one ridiculous guy, you know what I mean? So it'd be
Exactly.
like, okay, there's a ridiculous guy, boom, got him. Like, got like 5
The
ridiculous.
stereotypical stoner. And,
Yeah, he's gonna be wearing a suit full of weed leaves, and be really high, and whatever. But
the funny weed like glasses.
yeah, and not even really be the guy who actually started smoking 2 years ago. And you're like, what? That's the guy they picked? Jesus. And then they got to do, then if other people are going to look at the negatives right out of the gate and just be like, we need people overdoing it and people passing out and people doing this, So it just depends on what people are, deciding what they want to, how they want to cover it. And, Colorado's kind of like still the
Incubator.
Yeah, it's an easy place to come and sort of check those things out. And unfortunately, we're not, we're even like not giving them much anymore. You know what I mean?
No.
There hasn't really been anything
because
creative.
we've been pretty disappointed with the coverage we've gotten to this point.
Yeah, it's been pretty lame in Colorado as far as like they're the classics when it comes to the news guy talking shit every time, and you're like, really? I was there. There was like 400 people. They said there was 3. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
There's like 3 guys here with science, and you're like, there's 400 people there. You know what I mean? Like they always love to exaggerate the numbers in some ridiculous negative way,
or a connotation of,
or the other way around.
When it was a rally against cannabis, though there's thousands of people and there was 12.
When it was convenient, we're used to that.
But we've
Did you
we've
speed
went through
read that?
this
Is that what I
battle.
saw you do? You were just you're an animal, dude. You're an animal.
Yeah, I was just kind of perusing through it, but that's some crazy stuff, man. I'm
Yeah.
ready to
Yeah.
talk about that. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
Exactly. I even took a few notes. I'm not like. That's the funny thing is I was like, man, Mitch would love this one.
Oh
because
yeah,
This
absolutely.
is like a
I should have
proper.
read it.
Yeah, you should have. You should have done your homework.
Well,
Typical
pull it up.
guy. Well, you can't even. Then you can't see it. You're just gonna look there. Okay, don't worry about it. You can.
I can hear it. I'll catch up.
You'll catch up. No mustard, please. Let's do the shout outs now because we don't have her here. So if we had, normally I was going to go till the 420 thing, boom, do a crossover, whatever, boom. We'll do that now. At around 4:15, we're going to have a call in from our newest sponsor, but he didn't send any logos to you, did he? Double check. Just double check.
Nope.
No. Okay. Well, either way, we'll get him. I think he's going to call in at 4:15, so we can kind of talk just for 5 minutes or so. But we'll do him last, and we will start with New Millennium. These guys were on the show a couple weeks ago for just absolutely no reason other than snuck out files. It was a conspiracy, but at the same time, it was good. It was good to see them, but we didn't actually get down and dirty with some of the talks. We have to get him back on the show soon, and we're gonna still do that. Hopefully, get Neil on the show. Come on, man, Neil, we want to see you on the show, bro. Or some other. He's got another guy we need to bring on too. So we need to get them to organize that and put together the little New Millennium show. So that'll come up in a couple weeks. But in general, this is a great nutrient for anybody who's serious and wants to put on, proper flower, flavor-wise, also obviously growth-wise, but just real nice because of the fact that it's divided into seasons, so it makes it really easy for people to kind of figure out where they are in the section of grow at that moment in time, because you do, and hopefully you understand the seasons and how they work. And you can kind of tweak it and control it as far as their product decisions. Really good. It's like an in-between thing, which you really like triggers flowering, and but can also be used in other ways too, which is nice. So they have a whole program which is coming online soon, and that'll give you nutrient calculators, things like that, so you can kind of figure out exactly what you need, not waste time, but great product. Oh, is that something? Is that? No, we don't know. Is that it?
Yep.
It is it?
Yeah.
Dun-dun-dun. All right, good. I just want to make sure because I don't want to put it on the wrong. Like literally, Grow Life is one of those. Oh, I
Yep.
said the name. That's right. I'll do them next. Let's go. Since we got it, let's do it. But with New Millennium, you go to New Millennium Nutrients, right?
Mm-hmm.
The whole word.
NewMillenniumNutrients.com.
There you go. See, it's a long one. NewMillenniumNutrients.com to see that one. And like I said, it's a little bit late on this new website, man. Get it together, bro. Hopefully, it's not our computer. I'll check.
Right.
Could be. You never know. We're the lamest. Uh, and then you can go. Once again, check them out online. And then our latest sponsor, drum rolls. I'll have him call in at 4:15, he's gonna. Because I was thinking originally I was gonna have Jessica here, and then we're gonna do the commercials, and then Bam, he'd come in. My planning never goes as planned, but with Grow Life, this is going to be a good partnership, just because these guys aren't just one company; they represent a whole bunch, and that makes it interesting for us as a show. So we can bring on cool guys from the industry through them, and obviously kind of collab on different kind of giveaways, and also they're gonna do a lot of the events that we're doing here. They want to help out with, so just make everything a little bit better, right? Better all around. But we'll have Joe call in later. At the time I told him to, so if he's listening to the show now, don't worry, don't have to jump in. It's cool. Relax, bro. Take a bong hit. We're cool around here.
It looks like the website is growlifeinc.com.
There you go. Found it.
INC.
It's got the same site. It's got the same everything going on. You're good. I've done this so many times with people. I've been like, "What? I put on the wrong thing," and I'm like, "No."
Yep, it's the same logo and everything.
Oh, good.
No, I got it from the email actually.
Oh, good.
So, yep.
There we go. So
Industry leaders.
nice. Well, there we go. So it's going to be interesting. Like I said, representing different products, and we can kind of highlight those and bring them in with the products they have. Maybe do some side by sides with other people. Who knows?
Sounds like some good giveaways too.
Yeah, always fun for. I mean, it's nice because a lot of the times, even if it's just like 200-300 people that like really respond hard, that's a good number of people, because that's all you want. And you just got one in every area. One good one in all these little areas, and if you spread it out properly into the right growers that actually kind of give a shit. And I think some of the people that listen to the show give a shit. Some do.
Right.
Some don't. But a lot do. And then the ones that do appreciate it when it's, and I don't think everything they do is organic, of course, from this company. But in general, obviously they love organic. Gadgets, like I told these guys, like, yeah, our guys aren't so gadgety. But, of course, something interesting and new everybody's into. And, once in a while we'll have different products on. And if he's got stuff he wants to highlight, bring it, So,
Right.
So it's cool. So welcome on board, Grow Life. What was it, Grow Life?
Growlifeinc.com, INC.
Growlifeinc.com. Growlifeinc.com. Okay, so it's programmed into my head. Our buddies at Build a Soil. Jeremy was on the show a couple weeks ago. He is got to come on soon again, because we need to kind of do with him again. It's just like a whole episode never even holds it. That's why back in the day, Mitch could just call him up every time. He's like, "What are we doing?" I'd be like, "I don't know. What are we doing?" He's like, "I don't know." And then all of a sudden he'd be like, "Call Jeremy." Like, boom, Jeremy show, pow. So we definitely had a lot of shows with Jeremy. We broke stuff down. We were like down to the literal okay, this month's just nitrogen, and then the kid would pass out, and those are good episodes. If you haven't watched them before, you can go back to any of those Build a Soil episodes from way back in the day, and they're really, really good. Some of the best, actually, as far as soil science goes. And we had Coot like a couple weeks, like kind of in a row. We had like a Jeremy, Coot, boom, 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 back to back, and people who people who are real soil geeks, loving it, and all having products that they can put out that people just could, guaranteed, at least if they want to start real. It was like a real deal. And that's the thing with Build a Soil is all real shit, literally, all sorts.
I've heard nothing but good stuff about that product.
Oh, they have it. They build anything you want, or they can, if you don't know what you're doing, they can, obviously recommend.
Consult.
And they can do like 30,000 bags if you need it, and bam, oh shit. So, but apparently, according to Shay, that there's one guy who like hand mixes by hand every single one. I'm like, 30,000 bags. This guy's he's a machine.
He's a monster.
Or he's just a pretend guy. He just stands there and does that for a living, and then there's a big machine behind him that goes rung, 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 rung. And he just has to do it like symbolically, maybe. No, I don't know. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I think he does. I think it's literally, as it says, handmade, hand bagged. Crazy. So,
Man.
anyway, buildasoil.com is the way to check them out online, and it's 855-877-SOIL if you want to call them. And the old-fashioned way, I don't know, depends where you live right now. You might not be able to do either. It's crazy out there.
Oh man.
What did you hear about the earthquake today?
Yeah,
Mexico, yeah.
I was like, what is going on? It is like,
we'll go. Yeah, it was
Now-
8 point something on the Richter. Huh?
so this is terrible because
Pretty big.
the more crazy it gets, then I feel like the more the religious right kind of gets all like, yeah, you see, it's crazy, biblical stuff, bro, man, told you it was going to happen. It's like, oh my God, like they're gonna like
It's a little too much.
take
but
responsibility for it or
Yeah.
something like that. It's like, yeah,
If you're gonna take credit, take responsibility too.
yeah, you're like, exactly. I don't know if you did that, but it's a great one to kind of like manifest. I'm sure somebody's looking up. I'm sure there's connecting the dots between all sorts of bullshit right now because it's getting kind of
It's getting spooky the way everything
Crazy.
is going. I mean, the fires, the earthquakes, the hurricanes. It's, wow.
well. Usually it's like I used to blame it always on communication getting higher and higher, and people being able to talk about each other. Hey, there's a fire over here, fire over there, fire. Oh, look, there's 200 fires. Like, 100 years ago, there was like 200 fires, but nobody could communicate. So they'd be like, they just burn and nobody ever, I mean, didn't even go to them and they just did their shit.
The only way people know is like what we go through in
But
Denver right now with all the
Speaking
smoke
of-
breathing.
Speaking of doing their shit and always doing it right, Incredibles, they announced a huge announcement the other day that they're now available all over the fucking place. The list is getting huger and huger.
Going
Bam.
national.
Oh, they already
Whoa.
announced
Wow.
it. Bam, there it is. So all those states that just went by, which I couldn't really read really quick enough, are now added into the.
I think I seen California, Nevada,
Cali
and Colorado.
Cali, Nevada, that was already happening, but now they're available coming up in Oregon, New Mexico, and something else, and it's coming. There it is.
Okay, Colorado, California, Nevada, and they're getting ready for Oregon, Illinois, Arizona, Michigan, and Puerto Rico.
Bam, and I think they just announced that happened. That's happening. So
That's happening in 2018.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
what it
So
says.
that's all going down. We can finally say it. States. We were barely know what we were talking about when it was 3. We were like, I think it's these guys, but I'm not sure. Maybe, but it is official. I don't have to like guess anymore. It's great. No guessing. They actually are going to be in a shitload of states, which is awesome for them.
Some of the
And
only commercial edibles I trust.
we know here in Colorado that they're the most consistent, and they have expanded their menu tremendously, I tell you, tremendously. But they also have extracts from in-house extracts that are pretty awesome, real awesome, and they can process for you if you. I don't know if they still do that or not, but yeah, I guess they do because they have the yellow. They still do the yellow label, right? So.
Yep.
And they must be. If you want to check out online, you can go to iloveincredibles.com to find a store or check out what we were just talking about individually, product-wise. And but you can always trust these guys because they are, like I said, most consistent, which is the most important part. And also with all their edibles, they have labels on the actual pieces, so as you break them up, you still know how much is there, so you don't get like, oh man, I ate too much, which is, I don't know, I think kind of hard to do these days, but
Go to sleep.
yeah, you just, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Let's eat 1,000 milligrams, then you're really done.
Mm-hmm.
And our friends...
Joey Diaz eats 5,000 milligrams. He has these gummies made
Yeah.
especially for him. I'm like, oh man.
Yeah, that sounds about right for somebody who continuously eats it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, seeds are now, seeds are now, seeds are now. And nobody's coming down the stairs, right? Or are they not?
No, I thought so,
I
but
did too. You got spooked. It's the ghost. It's because we're doing a haunted house out here soon.
yeah.
Seedthroughnow.com if you want to check out the best in American genetics, and if you can also check out their Seedsaholic site, which will link to that one, and get onto the auction sites where they have all sorts of last packs and lost packs and things you can't find, and yeah, those are the interesting ones. And charities, of course, all sorts of cool things on that side. But from Seeds Here Now, you can also pick up from 35 plus breeders, direct from the breeder. You know, it's, as far as in their packaging, no repackaging, no pick top threes, none of that stuff, none of that malarkey. It's all what you want, you get it. If not, you're not getting it because it's not on the menu. And site's real quick and fast, so now it doesn't get all jammed up and mess up where it makes people think they get bought something, but two guys tried to buy it, and that was the old world where things were slow and didn't make sense. Now this stuff's on point. Bam, you say you want it, it's out of the menu. Bam, nobody buys it. Especially with the auction sites, those were a pain in the ass before. They had to really figure it out because people be like nailing it, saying putting all those Autobots on them and stuff.
Right.
Like, oh, the 20 Autobots, but they all Autobot at the same time. What is going on? You know what I mean?
Looks like it's all straightforward on this site.
All sorts of specials. We're going to have the James Bean Man on the scene in a little bit to break up our other show, probably for just a minute. And we'll have him talk about his seeds, man. All his seeds, bro. All his specials. I don't know if he's doing the $98 special still, but he was last week. He is?
You want me to read the specials real quick?
Okay, real quick. Yeah, might as well.
Let's read some specials here.
$98 specials. We're back.
Yep.
Still happening, I should say.
Okay, yeah. Crazy 98.88 sale. All Crockett Ethos and BOG. Exotic packs also 98.88, and several archive strains 98.88. And then we have Mosca's 10-year anniversary special. Buy 2 Mosca packs and receive a special release fun size pack of Mosca gear. We got La Plata special. 2 packs of La Plata, get 1 La Plata tester free. And your card special, spend $250, get Golden Coast gift. Spend $600, get Mycotech gift as well as a Golden Coast gift.
Very nice. And all that, seedsherenow.com. Check them out. And if you got somebody who's, because a lot of times I see people online asking, where do I get it? It's just like, and then it's funny, like within 2 or 3 answers, it's Seeds Here Now. Boom.
Have you heard of anything about this new stuff? I seen somebody that had this Acapulco Gold.
Oh, what's that new stuff?
Well, I mean, I thought it was an old lost strain. I mean, I hadn't seen it in forever, and then all of a sudden,
that's like saying Maui Wowie or something like that.
well, yeah, it ain't been around in a long time.
And some kid had it, and it was like dab. He made dabs out of it.
Really?
No, I think one guy had 1 seed, and then he grew it, and then his son took the whole thing out and turned it into live, fucking squished it. That's it. And it was all full of seeds.
Oh,
No,
wow.
I'm like,
oh, man, all full of seeds.
I'm making it up right now. I'm making up a story. I don't know. That's what would happen, though. If you're like, dude, you just killed my liquid one. I don't know. Acapulco Gold.
It's not new, but I mean, I've just seen it new now coming out.
Yeah,
or at least they're claiming it.
Probably some swag company like we've seen a lot of. There's a lot
right.
Of,
That's what I was afraid of.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of want to bring all those heirloom strains back, but I don't think anyone really has those genetics.
I called it
if they do,
Memorex.
they're holding them pretty tight, I'm sure.
A friend of mine asked me, "Is this real?"
You can always check with Bodie. You can
Memorex.
always check with Bodie's stuff where he'll bring, because he actually goes there and at least, even if it might be interbred with something else that he doesn't know about, but he at least goes there and kind of hand selects stuff wherever mostly wherever you see his stuff. I mean, he might have traded a few things here and there, but for the most part, if it says the name of a place, it's a place that he went to, and then it makes it a little bit more, at least
authentic.
Yeah, and that's where at least you get the unique part of it all.
The Oaxacas.
Exactly.
Yeah. They used to put out some good stuff in Oaxaca Valley.
Yeah, it's funny too because it's one of the few places that I remember seeing and kind of being curious about why it was so wispy, and then being told later, and then going like, "Oh, okay, it's cool." And that was way before I was ever growing. I was like, that was when I was 12 or something like that, and I was 13. I was like, "Huh, okay." because I was like, man, that doesn't really do, because it was like take a big old thing and break it down and take all the leaves out and all the stems and seeds, and by the time you're done, you're like,
Got two joints.
took a half ounce to make a joint and a half or something.
I know, I've been there.
An old style joint too. So
Yeah.
not like a proper joint. One proper joint.
Right. Get two little bitty ones or one proper joint.
Yep.
Been there, done that, man.
So let's see, what time is it now? Okay, she's gonna call in 5 minutes anyway, so that's good. So yeah, if you haven't read the article yet, if you click on her thing, you'll see the article, and it's like not that long. You might be able to pull it off and still listen to the show, possibly, or at least get a couple paragraphs in. And then, yes, let me see with Mowgli. I make sure he calls in a little bit later. I don't know if it may be Mowgli or one of the other guys from Phylos, but
Right on.
should be pretty cool. And at about a half an hour right before the 420 thing, we're gonna touch base with our friend from Grow Life, Joe, and he's gonna give us an update quickly, just about a bit more than the website, but also see if he's going to be able to. Well, we also, because Shailene, of course, is working with them, and Darren and this other guy, I can't remember his name now, so that's classic me. Here we go. There she is. Hey there. Is that Amanda?
Hey, Adam?
Oh, who's that?
This is Brett from last week. How you doing?
Oh, hey, Brett. How's it going?
It's going great. This is like kind of karma. Just as I'm about to call you about a subject, you started to talk about it. This is very interesting. It's a
mental connection.
I'm from New York originally, and that's why you hear me talking fast.
Oh,
so,
I know. We all are a little quick when we're from New York. I'm the same.
I'm a little excited also right now because I could talk to you for 3 hours straight right now about just subjects you've been talking about, but I just want to give you a quick little history. First thing I should tell everybody is I read these two books back in '74 by Starks and I guess Clark, Marijuana Potency and Marijuana Alchemy, and these books talk about Colombian weed, Thai weed that was tested from the government, all the percentages of THC. I think the highest one is 10 or 11%. And these are the finest of the finest weeds. But that's not why I'm calling you. I lived in Jamaica, Orange Hill, for 10 years, from 1989 to 97 or 8. And I brought SSS seeds, Super Sativa Seed Company seeds, Stinky Pinky.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been listening to what you've been talking about and some of your guests, and I don't mean to, knock anybody down, but people have to realize that when they're talking about landrace, it's almost impossible unless, you were from the late 70s or the early 80s, had seed stock from then.
Right.
And I spent a lot of time in Amsterdam in 74, 84, and 95 when I met you.
Right.
And in 84, there was every kind of weed from Colombian to Brazilian to Thai, but it was all commercial grade. So yes, those were land race, but they were the lower quality ones.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't Santa Martas and the Punta Roja Reds and all these exotic weeds that were batches from the Philippines. And something you said, Adam, stuck out to me.
What was that?
You said that in '81, the best weed you ever smoked was some Thai. I know that Thai like the back of my hand. It's called Eagle Thai.
Right.
It came in cans. We had it regularly. I was very fortunate to live 15 miles from Kennedy Airport. And between Kennedy Airport and the Brooklyn Navy Yard and 100 ships coming in a week from Maine to the eastern Long Island, we had varieties that were unbelievable. It was a supermarket of quality. In high school, and I hate to say this, I've been on this path since 72 straight, a connoisseur, and I don't mean to brag, but I was fortunate enough to see things and smoke things that put you into a place, and as you said last week, how are we going to ever know if these are the real seeds? Mm-hmm. You hit it on the head. I can remember the spiciness. I get flashes sometime of the tastes and the highs.
See, we need
impossible.
You need to donate your head to science and somehow magically hook it up to some sort of machine that'll be like the Terpinator 5000 or something. It'll be like
available.
People
they'll
put your nose near the weed, and you'll be like the head will sniff, and they'll be like, "Thank God this guy lived back then. We have him. He's the guy."
Well,
so that's the way it's going to be.
You are right. And I wanted to say something else. You talked about the watered down of Jamaican genetics. Mm-hmm. So I was there from '89, and there were almost no Dutch seeds. I lived in Westmoreland,
right.
Orange Hill.
Sure.
Everyone knows me. I built 4 homes there. I'm not bullshitting. Mm-hmm. I remember some original seeds still when I got there, few and far between. I'm going to tell everybody where the best Jamaican seeds came from.
Okay, hold on one second. Hold on one second. Now I got Amanda, right?
Okay.
Hey, it's Amanda. Hello.
Hey there, 1 second. I got a caller who's going to finish his story, so just hang in there. You can just kick back and listen for 3 minutes while we finish our story.
Sure.
He's in mid-story. We gotta I don't want to cut him too short. All right, so just hang in there. You can listen. So,
no worries.
All right, man. So go back.
Okay, Adam. So I'm going to just finish up quickly and leave you with this, but
Yep.
I would love to call back on another time.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially when we have more.
Okay, so when I lived in Jamaica, I lived on a property called William Hogg's property. It's very well known.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a multi-thousand-acre property that had several airstrips on it. I did not move there, know that, but they were strips that the planes would come directly from Colombia, 400 miles away, and fuel over. Well, that went on every single day for 10 years, and all the seeds, bales left of Colombian red and gold is what was the first changing of the seeds to the finest quality. I mean, seeds were brought from India, yes, with the slaves, I'll call them. They were indentured slaves 100 years before. But truly the best strains in Jamaica came from the crossbreeding of Colombian strains.
Yeah, of course. That's exactly. No, for sure. So why don't we? We'll have you call back anytime, actually. But I got my guest in now, so we gotta give her a time slot.
I understand, but I just
thanks for calling.
To go.
Oh yeah, no, it's fine.
You're welcome.
It sounds like you're right on point, though. You're right on point, at least. That's cool. So,
well,
man,
you had said you had said on the last thing that I had gone to Grass Valley and continued this, but I've been on it for quite a while. I will call back when you have more time.
All right, Brett. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Sorry about that, Amanda. Now we have full attention on you. So you got some scoop on another. You can freely use him as a story if you want. No problem. He sounds like a whole story. Brett sounds like he's got a lot of good stories. So you might, if you need to do some.
A lot of people got a lot of good stories.
Some smuggler stories, you might be able to. So welcome to the Adam Dunn Show.
Hello.
Thank you. Hopefully, a lot of my listeners clicked the link that was on our site to read your actual article that we're going to talk about today. And then I noticed you read a new article in Rolling Stone. So and then you explained that you're actually doing obviously a lot more for them too. So it's going to be cool. So people who now have listened to the show will hopefully recognize the name and realize that you got some insight. That's the reason why I was happy to have you on the show, because when I read the article, I was like, okay, very well put. Everything you did is like really well put, and like you can tell it's written from kind of a little on both sides of the fence, as far as like understanding kind of your prey a little bit as you're cruising around. You figured it out real good, which is part of the reason I thought it would be awesome to get you on. So
go ahead. I think I tried to do like a bridge between the cannabis world and the mainstream world, which can, for people who know a lot about cannabis, if you read some of the stuff that I'm writing, like in the Rolling Stone column.
Yeah.
Is that you? Am I making those noises? It's you.
No, it's another. We got another in-house guest, but it's cool. Just for sure, she's got a dog, so her dog is gonna, of course, be there.
Oh, it's the dog.
It's always the dog. You know that.
Who are you talking to?
My guest. My real guest. You were just like an initial. You're supposed to be my initial guest. Now you're my post guest. Sorry, Amanda. You have to stay. You're gonna have to stay semi-quiet during this. Semi. Once you get the headphones on, you'll understand.
Okay.
Not you, of course. I'm talking to.
I haven't shown like exceptional bad behavior.
I got the two people who are like ready to get rowdy and want to get party, but we're not. We're like, all right, guys, I'm holding them back.
I'm really sad I'm not there in person.
I know, right? It would have been.
Look how he paints
I haven't
us into
said
this
a word.
unseemly corner.
Oh, they're unsavory. Yeah, and get your big ugly bag off my table too, miss.
Fucking A.
Every time people want to advertise for like Safeway garbage bags on my bag.
No, this is.
Get it off.
If you notice, I've
He's
turned
got-
this to the white label.
Yeah,
Don't talk about it.
I won't even talk about it. The crap he's drinking. All right, Amanda,
I don't know.
let's get back to the. See, now I've already had 3 in a row, 4. This is a classic stoner show right here,
Oh goodness.
isn't it? Isn't it? Classic.
Classic.
So as you,
but I'm so much happier on the pod show. I did like an NPR interview this morning, and I was like, this is fun, but I really want to talk to the cannabis people.
right. How did that? How
Because
that?
the NPR people are like, so are there medical uses for marijuana?
Right. You want to
I'm
get
like,
over that.
oh my God, you guys are really behind.
Yeah.
You're really behind.
So for our listeners and the people actually in the studio and stuff, a little background on. So you're originally a New Yorker or East Coaster or something like that, or where you from originally?
Yeah, I grew up in New York. I'm from New York. I've been in LA like 8 years.
Okay.
Started writing about cannabis for LA Weekly several years back. Then I was writing a lot at BuzzFeed, and now I do a column for Rolling Stone. I did this big piece for GQ, working with a couple other people, stuff like that.
Cool. And then on the GQ article, how long did you kind of like do any? How long before you kind of immersed yourself into it? Did you get a little background, or who helped you kind of steer you into the right people? Because
well, I mean, so I
easy
met
to go-
Mowgli. I met Mowgli at the big Vegas conference last November, and then I got GQ on board in December, and then I started going really deep on the whole thing, like January, February, March, and then sort of went nuts on the reporting for a couple months.
Sure.
So yeah.
So what shows did you end up going to? Did you go to a couple different ones, or because I think where did we meet? We met one of the shows. I'm trying to think.
You and I totally met. You want something nuts? Okay, so Mowgli and I totally met at like in that presidential suite at the Rio, which like always has different parties going on. And I swear to God, you and I met in that same suite, but I want to say different party, different year.
Okay, that might make sense. That's the way it is there a lot of times. Or it's like different floor or something. You're like, oh, you're the one. That was the other floor.
I know. Well, but you know that they're not doing it at the Rio this year. It's at the convention center. So it might be really like diffuse and weird, and not everybody will be staying at the same hotel.
It's a bit.
Might be kind of lame.
That's another whole weird can of worms, which I'm like, wait a minute, are they actually putting like a halt to like the idea of endorsing cannabis and bringing it in wholeheartedly? Because
asked to leave.
like, who the hell wants to? What casino wouldn't be better without weed? You know what I mean? It's just like, even if it was in a designated wing, you know what I mean? You'd be like, oh, you got to go to that wing that's the farthest wing.
Right. Well, it's
and
like
have every room
it's
just
the
really
same
well
thing as
ventilated.
what's happening in Nevada with the distributors. It's like they have these deals with the alcohol people, and the alcohol people have been there forever. And like, this is the whole problem in every place. When they legalize cannabis, the people who have already been in power forever are like, oh, well, I'll get in on that. And then the people who have been working with cannabis forever are like, no, you won't. What are you talking about? Like, we're the cannabis people. You can't just come in and learn the plant in like 5 seconds. So, there's really, the casinos run Vegas.
They try to.
Well, it's also the transportation companies and all that. They have that. That's the thing, is they have it all. The alcohol transportation part is like key to running that town. So they're just thinking like, well, we already have it, all the channels open, ready, but the problem is that none of those casinos want to even touch it. You know what I mean? They're all just freaking freaked out about the whole federal thing, and you're like, all right, someone has to have some balls there, because you'd figure like all these billionaires and casino owners and bullshit would like just think like
little failing places.
Just take one shithole, take one shithole and turn it all weed and see if it works, which we know.
Right.
We know
circus,
it will.
circus.
Exact.
stand up. Leave
Yeah,
the
there
weed
you go.
casino.
Yeah.
Is
And
that
there
still as
you-
bad
there
as
you
it was
go.
when I saw the Grateful Dead there in 1989 and
I'm
90?
pretty sure it's as
Probably
bad.
worse.
I'm pretty sure it's as
Did,
bad.
did they just leave all the Wooks there after Jerry Garcia died?
But in general, it is
Still an old roach.
it is definitely like crazy that they would like even question. I don't even know why they're making a big deal over it, but it's just kind of like it's weird because it's the same shit we've been dealing with kind of all the time, and that's the thing about the article which I liked, which was we'll get into the article a little bit, but one of the things I liked a lot was your use of the word code switcher, which was like a great new term to me, which I like when I get when someone tells me something that I haven't heard and it makes sense. It's not lame. It didn't have 420. It didn't have 420, and it mixed up somehow. It'd be like, really, like, is that what you guys just heard of? You know what I mean? Like as things get really, predictable, especially in this, like we were talking about earlier, when news is like all innuendos and it's always the same, and you listen to it and you're like, this is so lame of reporting right here. This is like, it's a weed show, so we got to talk about Cheetos, and we got to talk about something stupid, and they're in the back and they're all like, that's the only part of the news that they're actually like wrote. The rest of it is all like kind of normal news, and then they're like, oh, this is great.
Right, and it's so frustrating when you read articles in like the New York Times or the Atlantic or like whatever, and it's just like so wrong. Because you have these journalists that are on the East Coast who like don't really know anything about legal weed, and they report things like they think it's news, and it's like that's a totally skewed version of what's happening. Like you got one press release from one bullshit company, and you think that what they're saying is true.
Have you not read the Westward and the Denver Post?
Yeah, well, we have like and the issues are so different in different cities. Like we're in Colorado, obviously, and Denver's. Not by any means efficient. It's like it's efficient in the sense of like there's definitely it brought the price down and made everybody kind of like go, ooh, this kind of sucks and it's a lot of work. And there's kind of it's not as glamorous as it was a few years ago, but it is. There's people making money and people are dealing with it or whatever. But it's also like there's no scene here. There's no good. Like the vibe is like only thing that goes on here is Red Rocks. It's like, okay, Red Rocks is really cool. That's great. Everyone goes there and pretends like that's like every week everywhere else, but it's not. And then you go everywhere else and it's kind of like, we're not allowed to do this. We're not allowed to do that. We're not allowed to do. LA is going to be ridiculous because people are so. Nobody follows any rules at all there.
Oh my God, LA is such a mess.
It's a jungle.
God.
It's a jungle.
It's such a mess here.
So I mean, you'll have endless stories there. You'll have endless stories there as far as cannabis related. That's one good thing about your industry, being in this industry and being known as a cannabis, journalist in a sense. But so explain to me the code switcher idea and the three different types
so the
of people.
code switcher, I've been in following and covering the industry for like 4 or 5 years or something, spending a lot of, time with a lot of people in cannabis. And, you sort of get the range of people that are involved, right? And there's like people who just like straight up used to be drug dealers and have been doing this forever, and people who live, off grid in NorCal and stuff like that in the Emerald Triangle. And then there's all these like suits, and everybody's like annoyed at the suits and the Wall Street guys and the private equity guys, and they're like, they don't want to touch the plant, and they just want some like, bullshit like turnkey solution, and like we're gonna, get these licenses in these states where you got to have $1 million in escrow just to get the license, and then
even more now.
There's like 3 doctors recommending pot in the whole state, and so like nobody's even got a recommendation, and those people are losing money anyway. And then I sort of started to notice that there were these like people in between who were just like very successful. It was like they understood how to move between a conversation that was pretty, black market, how are we going to get around this? How are we going to like do this? And then also could like sit down in a room with the guys in suits and like maybe get them to give them money or at least get respect or something like that. Because, I've talked to people that are in this like outlaw category that I'm calling, which, isn't supposed to be a negative designation. I've had people call themselves that to me, but like, somebody who
Oh,
grew up,
I totally agree with
off
Outlaw.
grid or
I agree with
spent
Outlaw.
time
She's an
selling
outlaw.
drugs. Like,
Sure.
I
and
consider
it's like
myself one
those
as
people
well.
are like
We're all happy
there's
with
a
Outlaw.
big culture.
Those of us who consider
There's a big
ourselves
culture
outlaws
class.
look down on the people who don't.
Right.
Exactly.
On some
Right,
level,
great,
still.
great, wonderful.
Like we
So I
still
just
have
didn't
our
wanna
own.
I'm not insulting anyone.
No,
No,
but I mean,
not at
Not at all.
We're all
Yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah.
still
So,
fucking
so,
honor amongst
you-
thieves,
some-
man.
I wear that badge
And there's-
proudly, honestly.
I
And
got
of course,
ejected from Red
you
Rocks
can
last
say,
fucking
like,
week.
Sorry.
Totally, and like you could get like the government might be like, oh well, if you used to be a criminal, that means you're not trustworthy. But like, guess what? Like when you have nothing guaranteeing your business deal, like a contract or law or whatever, something like that, like you have to be trustworthy. So a lot of those people, maybe yourselves included, are like really good, honest, easy to deal with people because that's how they've had to be when you're dealing with this black market situation. But so anyway, there are these people that are like halfway in between. I mean, and they can talk to both sides, and that's sort of what code switching is. I feel like code switching, I'm pretty sure the origin of that is sort of has sort of a racial connotation, or like maybe you're like an immigrant or something like that, and like you're at home, you're talking to your parents who speak like one language, and you're at school and you're talking another language. Yeah, but it's not even. Code switching specifically refers to the ability to sort of like change how you're talking based on who you're talking to. And so I feel like there was this.
That's based on how much money you're getting paid. That's a big difference.
That's politics.
Yeah, but that's still that's exactly the same thing. Changing what you're saying based on who you're talking to.
Yeah.
Politicians, lobbyists,
Yeah, so it's like
carpetbaggers. We have all of those in Colorado.
Yeah, we're inundated.
Yeah, but that could be a business advantage. Like I have, great sources that I really love who sort of are outlaws, and I've heard about their experiences like sitting down in sort of a corporate boardroom situation trying to get money, and like it's even though they're great at business, they're really smart, they're really good at growing cannabis, they've got the best genetics, they're great at what they do, they don't know how to like put on the right kind of suit and like chat about the latest article in the New Yorker and like have a sort of like this sort of weird. Like,
actually, we do, but we get this perception that we don't. We do. We definitely do. It's this perception from people who aren't like us, who are intimidated by us, who want to push us out. That's what's really going on.
For sure.
Well, they want to change
but I do
what we
think
look
that there
like
is
like the appearance of the industry.
A type of person.
I had to cut my hair to be accepted. So.
Yeah, and this is just like cultural stuff. And so basically, I think there are these people in the middle who mostly got involved in cannabis like during the recession, because I feel like there was this huge wave of people when the recession happened who were like, well, why don't I just try to get involved in legal weed? And I think because those people aren't necessarily as grounded in,
and we've seen that
the culture.
We've seen that time and time again here with the combination between the grower who's got passion, doesn't have any money, but grows 10 lights in his basement, and then has the sugar daddy kind of guy who thinks he's going to be the next big pot guy, and he puts all his money in this kid, and this kid never did anything that big, and then they go through all sorts of hoops and deals and then just crash and burn. It's like we watched it go like so many times.
Yeah.
We're like, oh my god,
through a lot of money.
Yeah, and
yes,
it's
still are.
None of this is like, these are super generalizations. There are exceptions to every rule. There are people who don't fit into categories. But it's more like, here's a framework for this conversation that mostly has to do with like an appetite for risk.
Well,
like how much
and also
risk are you willing to take on?
And you're talking about people that are like claiming to be in the industry too, which is like, and I think you got it kind of right, because there is that there is definitely the people like ourselves who smoked and grew weed when it was obviously not legal, and maybe hoping it would be one day.
But we still listened to NPR.
We definitely listen to NPR. We all listen to NPR.
Of course.
I don't believe any media anymore.
But
I'm just saying, like the whole stereotype that NPR is square and we're fucking old. I trimmed weed in 2003 while listening to fucking stories on NPR.
For sure.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
No, and those cultures like integrate with each other for sure. And there's it's not like the stereotype is not real.
The classic example back in the day, I always told people, was just like, if you put like all different age group people in the room and you let them get drunk, it gets weird, what I mean? Like, it's like you might have the one cool old guy who turns cooler when he gets drunk, but usually it'll just get weird, you know what I mean?
Right.
But when you give him when you smoke weed, when you have a bunch of people smoking weed, it gets this weird like kind of stable thing where like all of a sudden it's just like people are genuinely interested in what they're hearing. They're actually like involved in what they're doing. People are tripping out because they're smoking with a 70-year-old guy or something like that. I've had that when I was a kid, and like 15.
You're
16.
not 70. You barely look 50.
I know. I'm getting close though. I'm getting close.
No, totally. I used to go to a cannabis social lounge in LA that was like just the craziest
I bet.
intersection of all ages and races, especially in LA, just this really diverse population of people who used to just hang out there at all hours. And, LA sort of made it difficult for them to survive. But
right.
I wrote an elegy to them when they closed in like 2013. But
I can remember.
yeah, I mean, and that's why I can't wait to see what the social use looks like in Denver if it actually turns out to be cool.
I don't know. It's like we're
I
all.
think that requires some diversity, which Denver may be lacking.
Yeah, I mean, it's one
Good point.
It's one of the problems here as far as when it comes to the risk taking and it comes to the whole like trying to like do something that's a workable model. It just hasn't really been proven yet because of the limitations that they put out are just retarded.
Regulation.
It's beyond. It's beyond. It's made to not make money. You know what I mean? It's one of those like, okay, well that's great. Thanks for putting me in a position.
Right. You have to bring your own. If you have to bring your own, you can't. It doesn't make sense. Like, what if you have like an alcohol club where you bring your own alcohol? Like that doesn't make sense.
I think there are models that can work, but they're not going to work in a strip mall in a fucking.
And the problem is that you need to have an outdoor area and it can't be indoor because you can't follow all. So the things you can vaporize inside. And it is possible. It would just take a huge investment. And on top of that, very little return until you can kind of come up with a
and it's not like you guys have the weather where you can have an outdoor space the whole year that's functional.
I mean, luckily we could to a point as long as it's like you put a lot of money into your like overhead heating for the those months you need it, and then misters for the other part.
I mean, I think what we're talking about here is the exact same problem that faces anybody who wants to enter any aspect of the cannabis industry. Upfront funding.
Funding, yeah.
Right.
So, so on your quest for this article, you ended up going to like an infused dinner, right? Was that?
Yeah, I've been to a couple infused dinners, but that was I went to that one.
The one that you wrote about was that like a faux thing, or was it like a real properly done?
Are you saying PHO or FAUX?
I'm saying FAUX. I'm saying like it was like kind of like one of those. Kind of like because I thought you said in the article like drizzled on top. Is that the actual THC part? Was the drizzling on top of the different foods?
Yeah. So that.
Can you hear my eyes roll out there?
Eyes roll. I can just see
frequent followers of the Adam Dunn Show just heard my eyes roll.
I can see the eyes roll because I'm sitting around. I got people who are real really on point here. We're like, what? Wait a minute. No,
well,
because
that
fucking jokers.
You guys know Chris Daya, the like herbal chef? That was who did that one.
No,
you're not an herbal chef if it's drizzled on top.
I know.
You might be a chef and you might have had some cannabis oil.
Yeah. That's cooking with can of butter.
The food was infused. Like the food was infused. And he does, but you know what he does? He does like 10 milligram meals.
Exactly.
And so wasn't, I mean.
Sampler meals.
Well, I mean, at the same time, you can't really you can't do it over. I mean, I had a Thanksgiving dinner one time that was just like nobody remembers anything. We got like,
what was it called?
2.5 hours in.
We called that November.
Well, and also like a lot of people at that dinner were only like semi-regular cannabis users. Definitely weren't the kind of people who knew their edibles dosage, appropriate amount. And
people who need to be schooled.
If you're dealing with a noob, like 10 milligrams is maybe the right amount. But like, I probably want like 25.
So like,
and somebody who works out a lot more maybe wants like 50. So like, it's kind of hard to like dose a cannabis meal unless like beforehand, every person figure out how much dosage they should have.
Sure, and I mean the thing is, like I said, it's very easy to get accumulative, and if you make good food, and people might want to eat 3 or 4 of them, so
I just
keep
don't
it small.
See any point
just keep
inviting people who don't really use a lot of cannabis to an infused dinner.
Well, the point with that one was like that was like a dinner for investors, so that was like a lot of Wall Street people.
Yeah, you didn't want to get them too hammered.
Guys.
Yeah, you would have done well there.
Yes, exactly. If integrity mattered.
right?
Wait a minute. Well, they said investors probably along the lines.
So I went to a bunch of those.
I
went to a bunch of those myself, and it was always like.
I think I summed it up.
It was interesting to see people do pitch their ideas, and you could see like failure rates for like in the high 80s or something like that in my mind. Yeah. Like fail.
The burn rate is impressive.
So then during this dinner. It was was that in is that where you met? That's not where you met Magui though, right? That was at a dinner.
No, because I met Magui at a party in Vegas.
Okay.
That was a dinner. Well, so okay. So here's I'm going to say this. This got cut from the story, but like I went to that dinner to find Nick Pritzker because he was supposed to be there. This was like part of the thing. Like so, at one point in the article, I'm like, there's like. He might be Sean Parker. He's a billionaire because I was like, I'm looking for a billionaire who's like investing in cannabis. But it's like, okay, so who are the billionaires that are talking about cannabis? It's Sean Parker, it's Peter Thiel, and it's Pritzker. So, and then somebody that was planning this dinner was like, and Pritzker is going to be there, and I was like, boom, I'll go. I'll ask Pritzker if he's involved in the patents thing. Maybe he's involved. And he did not show up. Though he had like RSVP'd saying he was going to be there, and the craziest thing, and this was like one of the funniest things that I like was in like an original draft that like didn't make it in the final part of the story, but I was like outside smoking a joint with some like Hollywood guys, like Hollywood money guys, and this other guy just like runs in and like grabs somebody I'm talking to by the shoulder, and he's like, "Hey, I was just at the Clippers game with Pritzker," and I was like, "Pritzker." Turn around and but Pritzker's not behind him, and it's just like, he left Pritzker back at the Clippers game, and I was like, Carson.
Right. Well, at least you got the inside scoop and didn't waste time waiting around trying to hope he'd show up. So no, that's
and of course Pritzker had nothing to do with anything, but that was why I went to that dinner.
No, that's cool. So I know Jessica hasn't read it because she didn't do her homework because she didn't know about this. So she got feel bad. She has an excuse.
I didn't either. But I didn't know anything.
No worries.
I'll have follow up for fucking next week. Trust me.
But
no, it sounds like an interesting story.
I'll read
because bottom line is, we've been to
you,
places and seen exactly.
Have you heard about it? Do you want me to give you a summary of what's going on? Have you heard about the patent thing?
Give a quick summary on the patent thing because I know Jessica does know about it, but at the same time, it's good to let's hear it from the article's point of view so we can pick it apart and destroy it. No, of course. No.
I mean, so basically, there's this like mysterious company that has like really no other. This is not like a known entity in the cannabis world. There's like nothing else affiliated with this company that has obtained already 3 different, federal USPTO utility patents on the cannabis plant, and the patents are very broad. They cover, let's see, one of them is like more than 2% CBD, more than 2% THC, and no mercy.
I don't do technology. So
hold on one sec. Of course he leaves and then he goes nuts.
It's all part of a conspiracy.
Hold on.
They don't want this to be heard.
We have right when the sound guy leaves the room.
They don't want you to know about the.
He's on the payoff for the motherfucking secret company. Come on, everybody knows it.
I think that's what's happening. I think they got a triangulation on you right now. You better get out. Get out.
What is playing?
Probably his computer right there. Just go.
I don't know enough about computers.
I don't know much about
just go get him.
fearful.
Go get him. Go get him. Go get him. It's gone nuts. Just tell him it's gone nuts. You don't even touch it. Just go and get him. Go get him. No, don't
touch anything, for fuck's sake. If you're looking at it like that, don't touch it. That's how I feel about it.
We didn't know what it was.
We didn't know.
We went into nuts for okay. Whew.
Yeah.
All right. So this giant company.
Well, they're obviously not giant, or they'd be more visible.
No, they're very mysterious.
No,
right, exactly. So it's just like an LLC. There's like an LLC in California, and they have these hugely broad patents. And then essentially Reggie Gaudino at Steep Hill wrote up this memo last summer, sort of outlining what was in the patents and sort of saying the issued patents alone. So only the 2 that have been issued at that point, because the third one came in earlier this year, those 2 patents alone covered at least half the market. would cover half the strains on the market currently. And then if all the patents that they've applied for come through, that would cover the entire market. Like all cannabis would just be patented. And so so Mowgli, this guy who runs this lab in Portland, told me this, I was like, that sounds like a conspiracy theory that maybe isn't true. And I was, a little scared, but like a little bit intrigued and sort of like, let me look into this. And he was like, I think there's like a mysterious billionaire involved. He was like, I think Montel Williams is involved. I was like, what are you talking about? Because I had just met him. I didn't really know what the deal was. And then
I wouldn't be surprised on that one.
It was real. I know, right? But it was real. I went deep on it, and it was super real. And the answers I was getting from people about, the USPTO was like, yeah, just because you can patent something doesn't mean you could sell it legally. It just stops other people from selling it. I was like, how is the USPTO just like acting like this isn't a Schedule I drug, and like, what are we doing here? Like, how can one federal agency do something over here while the other federal agency does something over here? And
I thought they weren't allowed to patent plants anyways.
No, they have been able to
patent. That has been allowed.
You can't get a patent through this quick. This
80s.
is the part I find completely dubious about all of this. Is that it takes like 5 to 7 years to complete a patent process.
Well, the way
Monsanto and so they've been doing
so while a patent,
a long time.
While a patent is in process, you have the ability to cock block your competition, but you basically don't.
Right.
You don't have, and then again, I mean, I've done a lot of research on patent law, not just specifically to cannabis, but to food products and to clothing products and to a bunch of different things over the years, and at this point, patent law is like a fucking blowjob in a back alley. It's over pretty fucking quick. I mean, it's a lot of money and it's over pretty quick. It's not necessary. There's almost no enforcement of patent law at this point. And I have one more final point to make about this, which is going to be a huge cock block on them getting a patent, which is that the U.S. government already holds the patent on the medicinal use of cannabis. So I think
but that's not on the plant. That's on the molecule, on like cannabinoids.
I think that's going to be a huge. I mean, if they're saying it has X amount of this molecule that somebody else already holds a patent on, I think that's a conflict of interest, and I think that's going to be a factor.
Yeah, I think it's sort of like I'm pretty sure there's like a distinction there between cannabis, like the crop as a plant, and then like a pharmaceutical formulation. I'm pretty sure that's what the distinction is between the one that the government has and the one that the company got.
The one that the government has is just on THC delta 9, and I think it's going to be hard to supersede that if they're going to have any product that naturally occurringly has that.
Yeah, I don't know, but definitely these people have these patents, and they've been working on them for a long time. And I don't know if are you familiar with Michael Bacchus?
I'm familiar with the name, but I've not met this person.
Yeah, and when he was on forums, he would go as he was sort of known as Morpheus, and he helped co-found Cornerstone in Los Angeles. And essentially, he and Mark Lewis are two of the like patent inventors. So these are sort of the people that were hired to do breeding and be involved with this group that was getting the patents. And so Bacchus says that he's not working with these people anymore, and my sources indicate to me that is true. He's like not, part of the group anymore.
Right.
But he spoke on a panel a year ago at the State of Marijuana, which is like the thing that Susan Soares does out here. It's like a great like little conference. And there's like video of this online of him talking about how the USPTO this was like this whole process where they would call them and be like, well, you need to submit more proof about this, and sort of how difficult it was for them to push the patent through. And now ultimately, they have it. But like, it was like, oh, you need to do this. And he was like driving all over the place, trying to like gather different plants and different evidence that they had bred what they were saying was something novel.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be. I mean, the thing is, right now, it's definitely going to go into this court. I mean, you definitely are going to see this more and more. It's not like it's going to be isolated by any means, and everybody's going to think they have kind of I mean, when you do brush broad strokes like these guys do, then you kind of like lock down a lot of people in one way. But the crazy thing about cannabis, I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with this, is just the fact that it's like genie's out of the bottle already. So there's a lot. Of, go ahead, have fun, chasing that one down type thing. When you see certain things. But people are going to try, of course. I mean, they're going to send out.
Right, and greed makes people crazy. And well, yeah, and the thing about these patents and the strength of the protection on these patents is it could really take millions of dollars and years to overcome them. You know,
Amanda.
There was I
know this is the most interrupted show in the world, but we're gonna have another short interruption just because it's 4:20. We have our James Bean man on the scene who's going to call in at 4:20. No matter where he's at, he's going to call us. So,
actually, I'm calling. It's 4:20. I'm here.
I know. I'm saying.
I just said you were super fucking prompt.
I'm amazed. Usually it's 4:24 or something like that. So if you want to take a quick break, you can. We'll be about 5 minutes, something like that. So.
Wonderful.
Yeah, nice. And have you been listening, James, to the show? Are you kind of half? I mean, the thing is, we are a classic Adam Dunn show setup where we have I have some questions in front of me, but they barely got asked, because we always end up in some crazy direction talking about things that have nothing.
Off on a tangent.
Off on a tangent, not a complete. But then we, of course, had the guy.
Are you blaming my ass?
Oh, yeah, well,
I hear that.
I thought she was coming at 3 to be the first 45 minutes, but then she thought I meant come at 3:45. Whatever, miscommunication.
Yeah.
I think it's Mercury retrograde right now.
Yeah.
So, my God.
It might be because
I
know that
it is.
I was talking with Hazel over.
No, no. Mercury went direct on Monday.
Oh shit!
Sorry.
We're good.
He's gonna come in here with the LA news.
Oh,
Mercury
nice.
is direct.
I thought that was what was causing the earthquakes and everything too. All right, we were Mercury retrograde, so I can sign all these $1 million contracts I have now. Great.
But you know what? It's not up to its full speed yet. It'll be up to full speed in another week or two. So it's still moving slow.
All right, I'll wait. I won't sign anything.
Damn sluggish.
She must be from the galaxy.
Okay, so tell us, James, what's the hell's going on out there in the world of scrubbing floors? And he's in the process of moving right now, so he's had his face down on the ground, scrubbing the floor, mumbling to himself.
That's a panty moistener.
You hired somebody.
I just engineered a brush to attach the end of my power drill, so now I can just use the power drill and use that to scrub everything now. So I'm really excited.
Sounds terrible. Sounds like something a 15-year-old would do and think he was cool. Dad, look what I did. And you'd be like, oh my God, dude, I have to redo everything now. So you're moving to
this week, we're seasoned in Michigan.
You having a smokeout sale?
This week,
no, I think you have a smokeout sale from Oregon, right? Might as well. Smokey the Bear.
No, we don't have any smoke here.
Oh, good. You're in smoke free zone. No smoking. You're a little square mile. I got you. You set up big fans outside.
It's actually not from the fires either. Yeah, it's not from the fires. It's just from the amount of cannabis being consumed in the local area.
Right.
So.
Oh, yes.
I bet.
It's drifting this way.
Applegate Valley.
So tell me what's happening.
Applegate Valley could go pound for pound with Humboldt. I think Applegate is pulling out some serious plants down there right now. But this week's season's in Michigan. In 2 weeks, we're heading to the Boston Freedom Rally. So excited about that. This week's strain. This week we saw drops from Crockett. Got a restock. Got a restock coming from La Plata. His new Durangutans, his new Durango Blues will be on the site next week.
I like that. No, I thought it was witty. I smirked.
I saw her look. She was like, I like that.
You know, I like it.
That's right. It's a big seller. That's huge. So now I know that's the big one. Durangutan, Alien, the Durango Blues, which of course is Durango OG crossed with Alien Blues. I did want to warn everybody too. Ripper report.
Ripper.
So be ready. It is ripped timber. I've already heard of 2 grows that have gotten ripped.
Not good.
We're talking like week 5. It's not. Nobody's going to win from that. The guy who stole it, it's not ready yet. The guy who loses it, it definitely wasn't ready yet. So, but people are just in this day and age are just stupid. They don't know. They just see something and grab it.
Oh yeah.
So
well, some things can look pretty well done now.
I'm going to address that in my portion of the show because we're going to talk about my friend's murder trial for those kids who stole unfinished plants from his backyard.
Bam. See that? See where that connected?
Sweet. See how the segue? But yeah, so be vigilant. Guard your stuff. We are at that point of the year. Mm-hmm. Last but not least, this week's strain of the week is going to be Canna So Hard. Canna So Hard. So Canna So Hard is from TSK. That's the company our friend.
It's very sexy.
Canna So Hard is going to be.
She likes all the names.
A really nice.
They're fun.
Who's this from?
Cannatonic, Sour Tsunami, and Harlequin.
Ooh. So that's a high CBD.
Like 5-to-1, 6-to-1.
5-to-1, 6-to-1.
It's like a 5-to-1, 6-to-1 CBD to THC ratio with upwards of 25% cannabinoids. So she smells like cherry and grape fuel, turns purple in late flowering. It's a real compact indica.
Okay.
Finishes about 9 weeks, and it's really purple. That's the nice thing. It turns a beautiful purple.
Beautiful.
It's so lovely.
I love it. Nice.
Well, he's working with Sunny. Him and Sunny started playing around together. So he gets some purple stuff from Sunny. Sunny gets some of the good CBD stuff from two.
Yeah.
They come up with some Canna So Hards. But anyhow, those will be released next week. His new drop will be on my site. We've got 3 new ones from him: Canna So Hard, Powerage, which is the Canna So Hard male crossed with high voltage, and then TNT, which is the Canna So Hard crossed with 25-to-1 ACDC. So.
Cool.
Those are all from 2 or from Sunny?
No, those are. What was that from?
2.
That was all TSK. Yeah.
Yep. All really good stuff. It'll all be available. He's really kind of leading it, and I would say by far right now, as far as CBD breeding goes, and nailing stuff that he wants. He's got the availability to. He's got the facilities to run the numbers that he needs to look for the stuff he wants. And he's got the passion, and so he's by far the guy leading the CBD as far as I know right now. I mean, anything that I would say by next year he finally has something that's less than 0.03. He's been working on it for a couple of years. And I think he'll get there next year. So
nice. Just sending the right number to our new sponsor, Grow Life, because I think they always call my number because I probably forgot.
It happens.
It happens.
It's very confusing when there's 2 phone numbers.
Here we go. Bam. So, anything else? Last minute, second? Just hang in there for a second.
Nope. I'll just say.
All right.
Stop by if you're in Michigan. Stop by booth T61.
Yep.
You'll see our booth. All of our flags. We've got all 40 breeders on hand or in stock. So. Everything on the website this week is the Crazy 98 sale, or this month is the Crazy 98 sale. So all packs of exotic, Crockett, some archive, coastal, Golden Coast, all that stuff. $98 a pack.
98. Yeah, we announced all that for you. Don't you worry. Just listen to the show once in a while. But all right, good to hear. And we'll talk soon. See you at the next 420.
Yes.
Yep. Cool. Peace.
Nice. I'm excited for some more Galaxy talk.
Yeah, exactly. All right. And on the line, I think we have Darren right now. Is that Darren?
Yeah, Darren here.
Hey, what's going on? So we actually pulled your website, and I'm hoping that is the right one because you know how that goes. GrowLifeInc.com, right? Is that you?
Yeah, that's one of our landing pages, but a better one's going to be GrowLifeEco.com. That's our e-commerce website.
There we go. See, I knew we learned something right away just by talking to you. So awesome to get you on the show. And what I was explaining to the guys earlier is that you guys are representing a bunch of different things, so we were hoping to kind of jump in on different subjects and get you guys on board as much as possible so we can kind of get the most out of the show from you guys sponsoring the show and from us understanding all the nooks and crannies of this gigantic monster that you work for. No, I don't think it's that big of a monster. Give us a heads up on what you guys do.
Yeah, so, we really focus on the supply side of things. Whether you're a large commercial scale grower or a small home grower, we want to help get all the supplies from dirt, nutrients, soil, pesticides, you name it, into your lap. So one thing that's really taken off with us is our direct commercial program. So, we're really focusing on servicing these commercial accounts and getting them the best pricing surface. We've got a concierge service. Anything you need, you give us a call. We take care of it. We do all the heavy lifting, and we drop products right in your lap.
Right. So you guys deliver nationwide, obviously. How about worldwide? We guys doing
nationwide? Correct. Yeah. Yeah, no, worldwide, correct. Yeah, we're actually opening
we have
September 15th. We're opening our first retail store up in Calgary.
Okay,
so that's exciting.
Because we have a lot of listeners all over the place. A lot of UK listeners, far away lands that want to get some products in their hands. Do you? So when you say worldwide from Canada, or you mean just to Canada, or are you talking about like worldwide for like all over? Like maybe if somebody wanted to order some, no, obviously not dirt and stuff like that, because it'd be kind of stupid to order dirt.
Cost effective. It wouldn't be cost effective. But as far as Canada and the U.S., those are our main markets at this point.
I got you. Also, you guys are doing some trade shows, things like that, because that was kind of the idea. I was going to like hopefully link up with you guys and start putting you out there.
We'll be at almost every trade show. So, nice. There's an event coming up next Friday. We'll be in Phoenix, October 12th through 14th. Hopefully, we'll see you guys out in Cali come the end of the year.
Oh yeah, for sure, 100%. Yeah, that's a guarantee.
Yeah. Yep, you got Boston coming up, so we got plans on attending that one as well.
Cool. Yeah, I think I'll actually be in Boston too, so that'd be good. Well, that's what I mean. There'll be some great cross promotion possibilities, and that was kind of the idea. So after the show, let's link up and sort of discuss some of those, so we know where we're at, and make sure we're promoting each other at the right spots, because that's
Yeah, man.
half the time, especially if you get to the trade show and you end up in the corner and nobody's there. Hey, where were you? I didn't see you. I was like, well, you just needed one guy like me out there running around, dragging him back. Well, cool. Sounds like we're going to have a bunch of other things to talk about in the future, but I've got a busy show. Another call coming in. I think that's actually going to be Phylos probably calling in. So anyway, we already hyped you up in the beginning, but we'll hype you up at the end of the show too, and we'll be talking soon, Darren. Thanks.
Yeah, Adam, appreciate you, man. Thanks.
Okay, peace. All right, boom. This is a hot day. Amanda, you there?
I'm here.
Okay, and now I think we have the call in, so it's going to be kind of crazy. Things are going to get weird. All right, bring them in. Let's see, who do they send? Who do they send to them in? No, you got it? Or
this one won't answer for some reason. I'm clicking on add to group and it won't add. So
will not add to group. Unaddable. Okay, so whoever is being sent is like, got some unadded.
Just tell them to call back again.
Call back on a different name, maybe? I don't know.
It's like the caste system, the unaddables.
The unaddables. Okay, one more time. Let's see if we got this time. Boop. Nothing? It's weird.
Yeah, it won't let me add it.
Yeah. It's like an old-fashioned landline or something.
We got a sad face. We got a sad face on that. All right, so Amanda, do you remember where we were at, or did you like stone her out like I would?
There we go.
I think we were at when you were figuring stuff out. The guy had a billionaire, and you knew it, and then we kind of like got right around that point and got sidetracked. Now we brought him in.
Yes, I mean.
Okay.
Well, now we got somebody on the line.
We do. Who do we have on the line now?
Hey,
yeah.
Good afternoon. This is Jeremy Plum from the Open Cannabis Project.
Oh, okay,
Jeremy.
Is that Amanda?
Yes, it is.
Hi, friend.
Hey, friend. Good to hear your voice.
Nice.
Always good to hear your voice.
I didn't announce everybody properly because I didn't know if I knew who was coming, who wasn't. I wasn't sure. I was like, yeah, he's coming. I'm like, I don't know. We'll see. Welcome to the Adam Dunn Show, and glad to hear. We were kind of like mid-story with Amanda on her article, and I think it was probably a great time to bring him in. Right? He was probably right. So give us a little background on you guys, how you guys met.
We met through Mowgli.
Yes. Excuse me.
So from that first meeting with Mowgli, were you at the meeting with him, or was it just like after the fact when you guys got together to talk about stuff?
This is after the fact. GQ paid for me to go to Portland and sort of like check out the Phylos lab and the situation up there. None of those scenes are in the article, but free trip to Portland, why not? And met Jeremy, and I don't know. Jeremy is much more knowledgeable about the cannabis plant than I am. So if you want to hear about how serious this patent thing is or might be and is going to be from an actual cultivator who can speak much more intelligently on the subject, we'll get some perspective from Jeremy.
Definitely. Well, welcome to the show, Jeremy. It's awesome. I think all our most of our listeners are pretty adept, which would be good. So for them, it'll be like, finally, this guy's speaking my language over here.
Right, exactly.
Tell us a little bit about what you're doing with the project.
Wonderful. First, honored to be on the show. I've been a fan for a long time, and many allies have shown up. Thanks for curating the space and allowing for depth, especially when we're dealing with issues like genomics and intellectual property. We really do need platforms to do a deeper dive. And, of course, Amanda's piece is really the first time a truly professional journalist has broached the subject. And to me, this has always been sort of on the horizon, and we've been watching developments over the last few years kind of moving in increments toward what are situations I think people who are long-term involved with this space should be really concerned about. And obviously the article does a great job about highlighting some of the ways in which the conversation has evolved recently, especially beginning with the U.S. Patent and Trade Office, granting utility plant patents. And of course, there's a history of patents with the USPTO and cannabis well prior to that, but this is really a new beast. And so a little bit about the Open Cannabis Project. We are really aspiring to be the single largest resource for defining the public domain in terms of both genotypic and chemotypic data. And the purpose of this is really in vein of the kind of culture, open culture, copyleft, Creative Commons sort of movement that helps to preserve the heritage of genetic diversity that all of the West Coast and U.S. and international cannabis breeding community and people who have long served this plant have worked to create, to really protect the work that has already been authored and make sure that for all time people have access to this incredible genetic diversity to the extent we can. And that's really just the core of it. But the way that we do that is by assembling a strategy of defensive intellectual property that essentially defines these things in pretty clear terms in this publicly accessible database, and then bridges that material with the USPTO and other relevant parties and educates the community about the necessity of doing things like getting your special plants genotyped so that you can actually define them in the public domain while we still have the chance, because we don't have all the time in the world. You see the agenda moving pretty rapidly towards the real possibility, whether it's groups that Amanda has cited or other groups coming into this space, of people coming up and hoovering up this kind of incredible repertoire or amount of intellectual property that's been authored by our community, and then claiming it as an original invention just because they can afford the really expensive process to, bring forward a whole lot of attorneys and sort of tell a story that makes it look as if these are sort of novel expressions of the plant. So a tiny bit more about, I feel like how I stumbled into this might help give some context. I had the great fortune of finding a really remarkable analytical chemist in Portland named Pat Marshall, who since the mid-90s has been working to characterize the matrix of cannabis in a really rigorous fashion. He was really the most qualified scientist in the space. He'd already had 20 years of experience being the lead water quality control scientist in Portland, and had a lot of gas chromatography experience. And as most people probably know, organic chemists, it's not where like a lot of the young science graduates are focusing now. It's a lot more in like microbiology, genomics space, et cetera. So he's a bit of a rare character, and that he really was activated like most of us based on concerns for patients and for the incredible therapeutic outcomes that cannabis has been providing for people, and just knew that there was a lot more to the story than THC and even THC and CBD. So I worked as a producer for the last, really, it's been, it's well over 2 decades now. I've always done, in my own way, small observational studies, dividing rooms into quadrants, trying to sort of find the entire phenotypic expression of what is a huge array of genotypes that I've collected throughout my life, and understanding that there was, as soon as I was able to get analytical lab results, a huge array of chemistry that was going on that was related to why people were finding, relief with particular cultivars and not others. Right. But more importantly, understanding the distinction between genotype, phenotype, and chemotype. And once this became really clear that even if you have the exact same cutting and they're growing it in different environments, you'll see a significant range of chemotypes.
Right.
This basic insight set me forward to try to, essentially find the most useful therapeutic expressions of minor cannabinoid and terpene profiles in addition to the major cannabinoids. Many people have been working on this.
Especially if you're looking for those really minute things that you wouldn't really notice as a grower. You might notice a certain thing about it you like, and you might notice the effects when you actually make edibles or when you do something that's more of a concentrate. But when you actually, because you have to get it to that level to actually notice it, but when you're testing, I mean, it is a beautiful thing to be able to see, like, whoa, okay, there's a tiny little thing here, but if we amplify, there's ways to amplify that, and then it makes sense. And that's kind of the thing people are looking for.
Isn't it, though? I know that you share this passion. Of course, it's the discovery of a tiny little thing that looks rare and that you've not seen before, and that you can identify in your own personal experience as a sort of novel expression. That, for example, when I first found the most high beta-osamine peak in a single cultivar, there was a very pronounced effect that I was experiencing whenever I would have this particular Pakistani strain. And it was so clear that this was a whole different kind of pharmacology, and it was useful for a certain category of patients that I was working with that other cultivars wouldn't be. So in any case, as I began to accumulate all this data, which he was looking at 64 compounds, I can't find an example of another analytical lab in the U.S. that for this amount of time was looking at that many compounds. And like, I visited Israel, and Lumiere is arguably the best cannabis chemist I've ever found on the planet in terms of really high-resolution, diverse analytes. And now we have people like Dave D. Mary in the Technion, and Jonathan Page in Canada, and a whole variety of scientists that are doing incredibly high-resolution work. But Pat was a unicorn. He was just impassioned doing this, out of that kind of compassionate activist perspective. And in any case, I found a variety of things. For example, in my own garden with Cannatonic, a plant many people are familiar with, a mixed ratio plant from Resin Seed Company, I brought that to Portland and was working with that for a good 5 years while I had the analytics. I was able to produce in one batch 2 milligrams per gram of beta-myrcene and a mixed ratio that was certainly above the 3% THC and CBD that is directly in the center of what that very first utility plant patent described as being an original invention. And so we have this one little bit of data there that illustrates what they have. They did not breed or create this, and not to vilify anybody or oversimplify the themes, because there's a lot of complex motivations and possible applications for these technologies, but it's really time for us as a community to sort of move, I think, to the front in terms of the priorities of how we can, be custodians to this movement that pre-existed the industry long after we're all gone, that to protect the vital and core resources that really make the folk medicine revolution applications of this possible and probable for the international community.
Hey, Jeremy, I got a call. I got a elusive call in. I don't know what
it's just two.
It's two.
Wonderful.
Two. What are you doing on the phone?
How the hell do I get this show to play at my house?
Oh my God! Such a buzzkill.
Everything.
You're such a buzzkill, bro.
I
want to hear this, and I can't figure this out. It's playing old episodes and stuff. Maybe you should. It's like shoot me to iTunes, all kinds of weird stuff, old season.
Yeah, go to Livestream. Go to livestream.com.
Okay, cool.
It's hard out there for a rural farmer,
Wow, this guy's out in the bush. See, that's what happens. This is what happens. You start to get crazy.
You let me.
All right. Sorry
that's
for
why
interrupting.
I come down here for the glamour.
I thought it was something intelligent, but it was just two.
Be on there. All right.
Yeah. All right. Take care.
Go back to talking.
Peace. Try to figure it out. Livestream.com. All right. Bye. Sorry, guys. Right in the middle of it all. We had the meat and the potatoes. All right. I know that Jeremy's on point. He knows exactly where he was. Just like Amanda was. She was almost. She had it about. How much myrcene does it take to remember? So
it was 2 grams.
2 grams of myrcene. Was it myrcene or was it something else? No, it was something else. Well, what kind of cannabinoid are we talking about?
That is the terpene. Yeah, to pick that up, actually, if I may, there's just a few other. Obviously, this is a subject we could spend the next 4 hours on and not sufficiently express all of the range. But I think there's a few important takeaways I really want to distill. That first patent was, any mixed ratio, so over 3% THC and CBD, the absence of the sedative terpene beta-myrcene. So we know that these plants, are statistically improbable, but certainly exist in the proliferated, most genetically diverse plant grown in horticulture, which is cannabis, and that we just simply need to document that all of those things do exist. But one quick thing I want to say about patents, I think most people aren't aware of the 3 varieties of patents that, now as we move into a sort of more mature regulatory market, we're going to encounter and are just a part of our life, whether we like it or not. I mean, of course, there's a knee-jerk response that I think is every ethical person's reaction to patenting organisms.
Right.
It's just like, this is evil and it should never be touched.
Yeah.
And I typically would agree, but a lot of people don't know that the reason we have plant patents was actually to incentivize new expressions of seed genetics in the 1930s in the U.S. when we were losing a lot of our domestic diversity of food crops. And so used right and well, one of the possible meaningful outcomes, especially as we define things like copyleft and open source genetics and a variety of these new important themes, there is a way in which patents can be used in a narrow way to a clonally propagated plant to actually support our breeder community, who we need to do a lot of work over the next decade. Sure. Because now that the industry is going to scale, we have a crop that's maybe 80 years behind any other horticultural crop in terms of pathogen resistance and all sorts of.
It's exactly 80 years. It's about exactly 80 years behind. So, all right. So wait a minute. I got one more caller. Do I have one more caller hanging on here? I have another caller hanging on. Wait a minute. What? Who's calling?
Oh,
now?
Good.
Yes. Who's that?
Hey, it's Mowgli.
Oh, it's Mowgli. Awesome. I guess you're allowed to be on. You're allowed to be on here. I guess. Okay. I was just ready to be like, "Hey, bro, stop bugging us."
My ears were burning.
Yeah. Oh,
Bringing
good.
all 3 culprits in.
Well, so yeah, we were just talking terpenes at this point, as you'd expect. Okay, go ahead, Jeremy, I guess, and then Mowgli, just jump in whenever you feel like it's like you can't take it anymore.
Jeremy's on a roll. Jeremy, keep rolling.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mowgli, I don't know if you caught any of this last bit, but one of the things that I'm just trying to convey is that we as a community really need to embrace advanced plant breeding, because plant breeding is one of the ways forward for everybody and for us to really eke out an existence in the face of all kinds of challenges in production spaces that we're going to continue having until we simply have better plants. But one of the ways we can do that is with narrowly applied patents. And that these are, patents that are granted based on a clonally propagated cultivar that actually is the work of an original and intensive breeding effort. This is in high contrast to the kind of utility plant patent that was granted in Amanda's piece, and that, it's essentially not original work. That actually feels like, to me personally, a pretty aggressive move to kind of hoover up existing intellectual property, represent that as an original invention, and then kind of take that out of the ecosystem for all of the people who would work with what is a clearly therapeutic profile and a really ideal plant for people to grow. So there are many kinds of patents. Some are really broad and onerous, some are narrow, and then we need to do work to define what the new uncontemplated versions of copyleft, open source, sort of open culture responses where non-commercial use and different expressions of genetics that actually incentivize our breeders to do good work who otherwise can't make money because it's incredibly expensive and painful to do huge scale selections and actually do bulk chemotyping to validate that. And this whole process that's the next level of our therapeutic medicine revolution in cannabis. But so in any case, maybe not all patents are bad, and certainly some of the ones that have been granted, I think we could make a really strong case, do look bad, and that's why the Open Cannabis Project is now full steam ahead and has a really wonderful board of directors and a lot of support, including from people that really have parented the open culture movement in technology space. And a lot of elders in our community have come together recognizing that this is a real priority for us to get right, because in the wrong expressions, if we don't do anything, we'll see, I think, some really profound implications going forward that will negatively affect cannabis producers everywhere.
I want to jump in here with something. So in 2009 and 2010, I tried to patent my edibles products because I saw where the state of Colorado was going with our testing program was that they were going to allow the testing labs here to allow research and development, mostly research, on products that were submitted for testing without any non-compete agreement or intellectual property protection for developers of products here in our state. And I pretty much freaked out about that. But I was told in 2009 and 2010 and 2011 when I tried to actively patent this that I was not eligible for a patent because cannabis was federally illegal. And then I was told further.
Who told you that?
Who told me this?
Yeah, who said it?
A patent attorney from the U.S. Patent Office.
Ah, well, a different patent attorney made it happen.
Okay, I'm just saying maybe I was too far out ahead of the curve in my time. I mean, my goal was not to patent the process of making edibles, but just to patent my own product to protect it from intellectual property infringement because the state wouldn't protect the product I was developing here, or had developed here way before it was legal.
That was what year?
I started the whole process in 2009, 2010, and 2011.
Right.
I'm over it.
That was
She's an outlaw now. She ain't worried about it.
The other guys started work on their patent.
When? What year did you say?
I think that the work looking back at the actual patent shows breeding as far back as, 2011, 2012? Do you guys know?
Well, this all definitely predated that
patent was actually
significantly.
issued in 2012, I think. Oh, no, sorry.
Wow.
It was issued
Then they would have
in
had to start applying for it way before that.
Wait, was it issued in 2015, but the claims went to 2012? What was the date, Jeremy?
I think it shows the breeding going that far back.
I was thinking 2014 or 2015, and I'd have to double check.
So let me just say something super broad here about IP protection, and like what I think is at the heart of the challenge that this issue faces for our community and really for a bunch of other different industries too, is that there's this tension between innovation and control in capitalism. And if you look at the history of patent law and the ways it started and the ways it's evolved, like there are times in history where patents spurred innovation. They just did. They made it possible for poor people to spend time in their basements and invent things that make money, and they drove industries forward faster, and they created the technology that is so sort of innate to what humans do. And then there are times in history when patent laws have just been this crushing barrier to innovation, and they have been a tool for large corporations to just dominate small businesses and individuals. And right now we see this being replayed in the cannabis industry, which is that the plant right now is not ready for the drop in wholesale prices we're about to face. The thousands of small growers out there are not going to survive with a plant that was built on these crazy margins that no other industry has. Our crop losses to pest infestations and plant diseases are just too high. Like, it's just not going to work. We need plant breeding. However, so we have to incentivize innovation. Breeders have rarely got paid effectively. But at the same time, we don't want to rely on a tool that has ceded control to big corporations so often. And I think the real difference between good IP and bad IP, like Jeremy was saying, is good IP protects something that you made. It protects one thing that you made. It doesn't protect a whole huge, expensive category. Good IP is specific. It protects one thing that you made. And so when you patent a giant category with a $250,000 patent, you're blocking innovation, and that's not good for anybody. So that distinction is pretty subtle, but every industry and every community has kind of struggled with this tension, and we're just going to have to find a way to thread that needle.
Right. Well, I mean,
I think also I would just...
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I...
Yeah,
I just was going to add, because Jeremy spoke so eloquently earlier about essentially sort of coincidentally breeding a plant that had the same cannabinoid and terpene profile as something in the patent. But I also wanted to say that, there is a caregiver in Northern California who happened to order seeds online that were supposed to be one thing and then turned out to have a lot of THCV in them, and then gave some seeds and some clones of his THCV plant to Michael Bacchus, the lead patent inventor, and now believes, he and his lawyer believed, that those things ended up in one of the patent applications. And so they're trying to negotiate directly. Yeah, I'm talking about Doug. Yeah, who's Doug's Varin strain is sort of, well known in certain circles. But so yeah, Doug and his lawyer are trying to get in on one of the Biotech Institute patents because they believe, and this is sort of like a step beyond saying, oh, well, I was able to get that same cannabinoid terpene profile by breeding something totally different versus literally there are emails, and I've seen the emails, it's clear that he did give this stuff to Michael Bacchus around the exact same time that they were doing the breeding that's documented in the patents that involved Varin strains. So,
right. So that's sort of a clear example of the issue. It's like,
if this started the program after 2010, there's no way it wasn't bred by a breeder before that. Somebody who was an outlaw was a breeder before that. Those plants did not exist in a vacuum.
The thing is, overall, is spooky.
That's right. But this is the thing. That plant might be new and it might be worthy of protection in some way, but the patents that they're going after protect all the variants.
Yeah, it's a broad thing.
They want to say with these new patents, we've got a Varin plant, we're going to protect all the THCV plants ever. What Doug would have done is he would have protected Doug's Varin.
Right.
He wouldn't have tried to make a land grab for all the THCV plants in the world.
It was the same thing that happened in the bubble bag story with, one guy
invents. What was that guy? Yeah, I remember that.
Petrie and
right.
or Reinhardt and those guys, and they basically, they just had a drawing of a screen, water, hash, anything like that is ours. You know what I mean? So I was just like, really? I don't think that's a little too broad. You know what I mean? So at that point, everything that ever had water, hash, and that combination was had to pay him a royalty. And he went to court. He won actually, which is crazy. So
yeah, but you don't. Now everybody's using solvents. Hooray!
Well, I mean,
still people do it.
That's the broadness that is, to me, is what else can they broaden? What other can they get into and broaden the patent and take control over?
Well,
that's the spooky end that I'm seeing, that I'm hearing out of all this, the blanketness. Like you were saying, the one strain, the guy would have protected his own thing. Now they're just going after it all. What else can they do with that? It's, to me, that's the amazing thing, is how broad they allowed that to happen. And now it can grow. If they allow this to happen, what's next? Is it getting into our food supply or corn? Or
let's find out from Mowgli and Son, Mowgli and crew here.
And I also have an answer.
Let me say one thing about those broad patents. Let me say two things about those broad patents. One is that there's two issues here, right? One is stepping on prior art, and I think the Open Cannabis Project can basically make sure that people aren't able to step on prior art. I mean, that's just illegal, even by the government standards. But the other issue is these overbroad patents, these utility patents. And I got to say something about the Biotech Institute and the group behind them. So it's not like they were Monsanto coming in. Like the people behind that group, some of them, half of them, were old school people from the cannabis community, some of the best breeders that we've ever had. And in fact, some of them were really good people. Like I consider myself friends with some of them, and to be honest, I feel really conflicted about this article because they were breeders for years and they never got paid. And then someone said to them, this is how things work in the real world. Those utility patents, that's how agriculture works. That's what the U.S. Patent Office allows. There are plant patents on other kinds of plants that like so there's some oilseed plants that make omega-3 fatty acids, and there are patents on those plants that don't protect the plant. They protect any plant that makes omega-3 fatty acids like that. That kind of broad patent is what the government has allowed. And so these guys, it's fucked up, but these guys were just doing business as the government has sanctioned it. They got the financial backing, and it seemed like a smart business move. And I don't know that they were bad people. Our real problem here is with the government. I mean, I don't know everybody involved in that group. I have no idea about what's good and what's evil. But the real problem here, and the real reason why it's going to be so difficult to fight, is that this is how the USPTO works. So I spent a lot of time talking to people who thought they could lobby the USPTO to do things differently for cannabis. But they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. Like, if we want things to go differently in this industry, it's going to have to be a community-based effort where we say, this is not how we want to roll. And yeah, the law lets you go like this. And Big Ag has always operated like this with these categorical patents. But that is terrible for this industry, and we know that, and we're not going to do that. And that's a pretty intense decision for a new industry to make.
So I have a question. By your projections, would this mean that, say, perhaps an organic lavender farmer who's making lavender extracts, but by the default that also has a terpene that's in cannabis, is that person going to experience some sort of agricultural cock blockery, or is it just going to be specifically to cannabis plants?
Yeah, I very much doubt you can get a patent that is so broad that it covers multiple plant species. But I would imagine that if we dug deep, we could find that there are utility patents on lavender.
But we're seeing people pulling specific
linalool above 4% or something like that.
We're seeing people specifically pull some terpenes from other plants to blend with cannabis products.
Of course.
And so where does that...
Well, the ones that are already out there, like limonene, the basic off-the-shelf ones that they couldn't reverse.
You know what I'm saying? That
kind of, yeah. I kind of know what you're saying. Do you get what we're saying at all, guys?
That if they're
I mean,
I don't know.
I do. I think this is a little bit.
We don't know where it's going to end. Like, we don't know what their rulings will be. We don't know what's too broad. We don't know what. When you talk to patent lawyers, as you just pointed out, like a few years ago, they thought you couldn't get a patent on cannabis. I had a really smart lawyer who told me the same thing. But,
and I mean, I had actually reached out directly to the patent office.
Right. But you weren't trying to do
the truth is, like, we're not.
No, I was trying to basically patent the difference between Coke and Pepsi.
For a long time.
I just wanted to protect my specific formula.
I missed the last part.
What's that about Coca-Cola?
I just said that when I had attempted to make a patent on my product, I wasn't really trying to patent the concept of an edible. I was trying to patent the difference between, say, Coke and Pepsi, because those things have a very specific, very protective food patent, and that's what I had been trying to pursue, and was told this was federally not open to me, and then I had just tried to pursue a federal patent for my extraction method, and that also was. I was told that basically this was directly between myself and the Denver Patent Office in 2010 in a direct call when I couldn't find an attorney who would help me with it, because back then even the weed attorneys were like, it's just going to cost too much money. You don't have enough money. And I was like, well, I'm going to pursue this on my own. I'll do the paperwork myself. Because I saw where the regulation in the state was going, and
all right, but so you know why you couldn't get it then? Probably is because you tried to do it yourself. So, funny story about the patent in that article, right? About the Biotech Institute patent. When I found out about those patents, at first I dismissed them. They just seemed so broad and unenforceable and preposterous. I just figured they were another one of these crazy patents that got through for no good reason and wouldn't hold up. Mm-hmm. And as I gradually realized that that's how agriculture works, and that you can get patents like this and they are enforced, I started to get more and more nervous. And then I had this like weird few days where I stayed up really late every night Googling. Basically, I was like, I have to find the best plant patent attorney in the world. because I don't understand this shit, and no one I talk to understands. I'm going to find the best plant patent attorney in the entire world and get them to explain this to me because it's so complicated. And I stayed up for nights. And then finally I was like, oh my God, here's the guy. He's the best plant patent attorney in the entire world. I looked like in it globally. I was like, this is the guy. He's the best. And I called him on the phone, and he answered the phone. And he was like, oh, yeah, I wrote that patent.
Wow.
Well, you know.
So that's how you get a patent like that, is you pay for that guy.
Yeah, I know. It's the ugly truth of the whole industry, and that's what
the great news is. This administration is cutting all the budgets for all of the different enforcement agencies and everything else, so we won't have to worry about anyone being out there on the feet on the streets actually enforcing this on anybody.
Right.
Well, and before we throw in the towel on civilization, although there may be some cost concern currently, I do think this all underlines the importance of the work of the OCP. But I really think there is an unbelievable, unique opportunity at the beginning of this industry to do our very damnedest as a community to come together and get as much information into an activated public domain as possible. And to be able to do that both through genotype. Yeah. Oh, sorry, what was that?
I just hear children.
You're in your head. You're dreaming.
There would be someone in the background.
Well, this is actually, are we not doing this for the children who have yet to arrive? There is a future industry. There's actually something that's coming after we're all long gone. But I believe that this is one of those really rare opportunities in history where our actions, which don't have to be utterly dramatic, but through the vehicle of the Open Cannabis Project, can funnel a meaningful impact forward so that the children really do have something to look forward to, and they're not just all beholden to a single corporation in order to access any meaningful expression of this plant, many of which have not been validated. We've not even begun to tap the infinite potential of therapeutic prowess that cannabis offers, of course, and it's really important to share all this data. So I know that we also need support, and I just have to do the shameless plug here we have a website, but we're currently overhauling the website. And the truth is, the OCP is a nonprofit that really needs support, and specifically, we need financial contributions or people who want to partner with this organization because they understand the implications of this issue. We also need growers and breeders to make sure that their work is documented in genotype or chemotype form, and that we also need aggregate chemotype data and a variety of intellectual property support. And so the reality is, if anybody who's listening has those sort of resources, please don't hesitate to go to the website, drop an email. We now have a director of operations named Beth, who is just a remarkable, heroic woman who will make sure that things are actually being responded to, and we're really going to make a go of this.
Not like the typical slothy men. You'll never get back. I rolled a joint on that, spilled my coffee on it.
I will admit, I am culpable for some sloth-like behavior out of it. There have been some misresponses.
You mean driving around with an envelope in your purse for 2 weeks? That has a stamp on it and everything?
Oh, that's your stuff?
I'm just saying.
Yeah, well,
I don't think
they're not all on point, that's for sure. You're not all on point, that's for sure.
I'm on point from time to... I'm on the fucking cusp of competent, right fucking here.
Right there, right on the edge.
You're radiating competence.
I actually am. Wait till you listen to where I talk about my shit.
You've also coined a new term. Agricultural cockblockery now is that's like the new term.
Agricultural cockblockery.
Wait till you listen to my part of the show and you'll learn some shit. And not just about agricultural cockblockery, but general cockblockery and why we have bigger things to fight than just this couple of patents, that there's bigger problems going on in our society to fix.
But listen, speaking of agricultural cockblockery...
No, I am not to blame for this foolishness.
Which can only mean barriers to pollination, right?
Well, I actually was going to ask how you guys felt about genetic drift from hemp pollen out on the... Because, I mean, in Colorado, that's becoming already an issue down in the southern part of the state.
Yeah, well yeah. Move, man.
Yeah, in Oregon, too.
Yeah.
In Oregon, too, it's really... I mean, we now have hemp farmers that are feminizing, or they're planting only female hemp plants,
right?
Because they don't want to piss off the medical growers nearby.
I think the possibility of hermaphrodism is quite.
Yeah, I mean, but viable. At least they're trying. At least they're trying for sure. But definitely, if you're in the wrong place, and 10 miles is just like guaranteed you're going to get seated. But
this is where I recommend
but
that.
Above and beyond that, it just sometimes depends.
Read Ken Kesey's 1992 book Sailor Song, and he has a part in there where it's about this like Jamaican dude who wants to grow some cannabis plants just for sentimental purposes because the government has released a pollen that has basically rendered all plants impotent and no THC, ineffective, I guess is the word I'm looking for.
This is a dream story.
What? No, it's in a 1992 novel from Ken Kesey, who also wrote One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and any number of other fucking...
Fiction.
Yes, but
okay. Well,
with some...
Don't give him
there are accuracies within it.
Don't give him ideas. That's like how I always look at it, like, man, we could get knocked out so quick. They're smart about it. Be like, oh, yeah, here you go.
I'm just saying that...
I never thought about that. Inactivating pollen.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
It's in that book. I'm just saying. I read, and I have no one to talk about these things with. So I'm hoping that somewhere out there, there's another person who's read that book and would like to discuss it.
We like Ken Kesey, so
yeah,
we'll give you
awesome.
We'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
I think that dude was tripping balls and had some fucking insights about the future.
Of course he was,
and there's nothing wrong with that.
Of course he was. Of course he did. No, but we have another caller. Okay, we have another caller.
See, somebody's read that fucking book.
They were on it. They were inspired. Welcome to the Adam Dunn Show. We have you on the line.
Hey.
Who's that?
It's two again. I got a question.
Oh my God, what's going on?
I actually got some data now that I heard what you guys are talking about.
Oh yeah, what's going on?
Oh no, I'm just
killing.
Ask Mogul a question about
okay, good.
Long chain DNA versus short chain DNA testing, and it's going to be like up to that. And then also we are within 6 miles of some dickhead blowing off pollen up top, and we're trying to stop him. All the rec growers and the hemp growers in the neighborhood are trying to put forth a little effort to get this guy to stop. So we might actually pass legislation in our area to make only female hemp plants be grown.
And that'll be your little. And is that your racket now? Is that what you're doing? You're like, it's my racket. I get them feminized. Then.
You know what you should do, man. You should convince the hemp growers that female hemp plants make more CBD. Like they're all growing for CBD now. They should be growing. I mean, any decent hemp licensee at this point is growing fields of AC/DC. So it's really
AC/DC test hot.
Colorado changed their testing standards.
At the end.
Higher or lower?
No, I was at the hearing
in Oregon,
for that.
people are harvesting a little bit early, so they keep it under 0.3.
Yeah, you can actually manipulate, of course, the ratio by harvesting early.
Well, that's
the point is that hemp farmers should be growing females anyway. There's no point for them to be growing males. Once they wise up about that.
I will interject that there are people who are breeding for seed because there isn't seed to be grown from. And there's also a situation where the state changed our testing law for our hemp, where now it's not testing of the whole, like from the dirt to the top of the crown of the plant and mashed all together. They're just testing just.
No, they only take the heady nuggets.
Yes, and they're just taking just the flower from the top. So they're concentrating the level of THC by just taking that and not taking the stems, the seeds, and the other part that doesn't contain as much THC.
Right.
And this is actually causing the state agriculture department has been on a rampage of destroying hemp fields and harvesting early before you get your seeds, which you can sell because that's what people are wanting to get for the marketplace.
Yeah, but if you go to seed, you automatically get a spike at that point.
Yes, and so that's.
I
believe I made my point.
This is another reason why we need serious plant breeders working hard. I mean,
right. Well, and I'm working at the legislative level to understand this.
To 20% CBD plants that are under 0.3% THC. If this was a mature industry, every farmer out there would have that right now.
I got him.
You had to. It's all your fault, pretty much. I'm blaming two.
Somebody get on it.
Well, no, because to get a certified seed in the country, you got to run it certain tests, and you have to make it inside. You're not allowed to actually make seeds outside. Because of cross-pollination and stuff that goes on. So you have to have a really nice greenhouse or indoor room with proper filters and stuff so you can, and then you have to run them so many times in so many places to prove that it won't turn hot. It won't really test hot. So
the problem we have in Colorado is that the higher altitude you grow something at, the hotter it grows.
Yeah, from UV.
Yeah.
And that's proof because you live at 9,000 feet.
Whoa.
And you fire him.
Woo!
But no. So like technically, we should all be under 0.0 something because then we can easily, say that it's not going to.
No, in the state of Colorado, it's 0.003.
They're like, well, it's 0.3. So if you go under 0.0 something, then you're pretty much legit. Because we're trying to grow this stuff as cannabis, not as cannabis, but like we would with cannabis with nutrients and stuff. Because a lot of people that grow hemp don't actually feed it the same as we would cannabis. They just grow it out like in a field and stuff. So now we're going to try and run it to where it could get hot and keep testing it to see if it comes through right.
So you're basically going to ride the razor's edge. Good job too, as usual.
Well, we have labs.
Feed the hell out of it.
This is exactly
super rich cannabinoids and spike.
One of my categories of issues that I came to talk about was that the state is working on its research licensing, and they actually had the meeting for that last week, and I went to that. So. We can talk.
I might get one myself.
All right, we're going to get that.
What we're experiencing, though, is that there's no law dictating whether you're growing.
Let's hear from these callers so that they're not just like using up their phone data.
We're going to talk to you later, bro. Come on now.
He's a big needy baby out there in the woods.
3 guests on the line now. 3 plus you. All right.
We're all going to talk at once.
Yeah, exactly.
The funny thing is that we got hemp growers now buying thousands of plant sex tests because they're literally planting from seed and getting rid of all the males, growing entire fields.
Yeah, we had to do it at a field in Nevada, and it was like a pretty long process. Took over a week, and it was just like back and forth, just with training people have to keep looking, get on their knees, crawl around, look at them. It was like Jesus Christ, but it was worth it in the end. I mean, there was a few obviously in there, and they had to get taken out a little later, but for the most part, most got taken out, and it was just like, damn, that's like adding so much. We literally hired half the town because there was only 500 people in the town, so it was 250 people doing it. And it was just like, there you go. There's some fucking jobs.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But question for Mowgli.
Yes.
In your sex test, do they detect hermaphroditic tendencies too, or do they just detect males and females?
Just males and females. Hermaphrodites are females. If you stress them out,
so even in a sex test, if you have some crappy seeds, and you test them out and they come back females with hermaphrodites, then you're still going to be growing stuff that's dropping pollen on the feminized hemp.
Yes, that is right. There's always a danger that one of your females will harm, either because it's really shitty or because you made it uncomfortable. I can't help you.
Well, yeah. I mean, sometimes it's intersexual, though, you know what I mean?
Best answer of the show.
Some plants are just intersexual, you know what I mean? Like, you got some shit hemp seeds, like some Eastern Bloc Russian shit, and it's still, you grow them up and they start flowering. Next thing you know, you're just nuts and butts all over the place.
That was hermaphroditic flowers, by the way.
Yeah,
nuts and butts
all over the place.
Nuts and butts all over the place leads straight to agricultural cock block.
Yeah. No
cock blockery.
No nuts and butts.
See, the problem is the agriculture, the Department of Agriculture has no say in how what seeds you start. They just want under 0.3. So if you start that industrial hemp that's going to run, intersexual from the start, then I'm looking at a rec grow in my backyard right now, and these guys have a petition going against the guy like 5 miles away because he's just blowing pollen of like the shittiest hemp ever.
Wait, do you guys know what I just realized?
What's that?
I'm going to put on every one of those little plant sex test cards, I'm going to put the tagline, "This is agricultural cock blockery." Oh my God, this is genius.
I want $1.
Cock blockery.
I'll give you all credit.
You got to pay Jessica some royalties on that.
Yeah.
I will.
My genius is often underappreciated.
Yeah.
Nice.
Help me fund my project a little bit.
Right there.
Oh yeah, everyone will know right there. Oh yeah,
cockblock
queen right there.
Like put it in quotes.
More verbal cockblockery from America's cheesecake lady.
Exactly.
It's not that I'm not hot; it's just that I'm fucking abrasive.
I have a question. Another question for Margot. Like, you guys do short chain DNA, right?
Short chain DNA
sampling. When you do the galaxy, it's not long chain testing. Am I correct in that wordage?
Probably not.
I'm not familiar with that terminology.
Okay, I thought there was like an easy way to do. So when you guys do the DNA testing, is it like complete DNA testing?
Oh.
We do. So when you do maybe you're talking about when you do sequencing, you can do short read sequencing or long read sequencing. But that is for assembling full genomes. There's no reason to do a long read for genotyping. That's just when you're doing an entire genome. So we do short read sequencing across thousands of unique sites in the genome, and then that creates like a genomic barcode for each plant. So that's how we do it.
Do you think the long sequence ones are going to be more applicable to a patent than the short ones? Like, are you getting a more full database of information from the strain when you do the long one?
So we also published our entire genome where we did long read sequencing. That's the kind of thing that you're going to do on one plant, not thousands. But sequence data, let me just say this loud and clear. Sequence data is really, really good for keeping other people from patenting your plants, but it is a dumb investment if you think it's going to help you get a patent on your plant.
Right.
I see what you're saying.
That's good advice.
But can people take, like, so we get so I send some stuff to Phylos, and you run it, and then it shows that pattern. Then does that offer some sort of protection for people like myself who are, interested in, making new strains and stuff like that?
So, again, like, getting the genetic identity of your plant, and especially if you make it public through the Open Cannabis Project, which we'll do if you let us, gives you protection because it keeps other people from patenting your stuff. If you want to patent your stuff yourself, call a lawyer. That's not really what our product is for.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the thing is, I think the whole way that we always used to kind of cover our asses a little bit was, like as a, in the simpler times, it was just like, well, get printed or something. At least you get printed, you can show a date on the thing.
Well, like the Gutenberg Bible level of printing?
Just somewhere somewhere
or
that's
do you mean
recognized,
like a photocopy or
a recognized real thing that actually got published at one point.
See, that's the kind of protection that matters. Protection where it's like, I made this, I get credit, don't patent it, don't steal it.
Right.
That's not the same as getting a patent.
Right.
That's just like...
No, that was just
that was copyright.
That was like circling the wagon, basically.
Do you
is what
view
you did.
your
You're just kind of
project
covering every base you could.
Similar to an open medical?
A specific. Oh, sorry.
I was going to ask, do you view what you're offering as similar to like an open genetic medical trial where people can say, hey, I've had this genetic testing. For instance, a good friend of mine who's a patient that I've been working with, but we've also been good friends for many years, has gone through the whole breast cancer treatment, and she had the genetic testing and submitted and agreed to be participant in having her ancestry and DNA as part of this breast cancer gene research. And so do you view what you're doing as somewhat similar to that, where it's an open sourcing project, or is it more of
so those two things are separate, but it's both, right? I mean, the reason why we make all of our data public is because it's going to stop people from patenting stuff. Mm-hmm. And if you want protection on your stuff, it'll stop people from patenting your stuff. But also because making all that data public, just like your friend did, it just speeds up science. Because cannabis science is so far behind. So people need access to all that data to move things forward. And those are two separate things, but making stuff open accomplishes both of them, we hope.
Well,
are you asking
way,
if Mowgli was using the
Yes.
It sounded like you were asking whether Mowgli was using the genetic data for his own purposes, which he is.
No, I was not. I wasn't asking, was he using it like... I don't think you can 3D program out the equivalent of it or anything, but, I don't...
Well, I mean, I think
you
heard her say what she is.
Right.
What do you mean I'm using it for my own purposes?
Huh? She was saying something about someone did like a genetic, her friend or family member did some sort of genetic test, and they were using the genetic data for some kind of breast cancer research. And it sounded like in a similar way, Mowgli's like gathering all this genetic data, and it's like being put in the public domain, but he's also using the genetic data to breed better cannabis or come up with what breeding better cannabis would look like.
Well, so that's actually not true. That's actually not true. Right. So making the genetic data public will let all scientists who are interested move forward. And to the extent that data is valuable, and will help us figure out how cannabis is related and learn stuff. Like, yeah, our scientists are looking at it all the time so we can learn stuff. We're just making sure that every scientist in the world can also look at it. To the extent that it's valuable for breeding, actually, the way we do the test, it doesn't pull in the right kind of data. So when he was asking about short-read sequencing versus long-read sequencing,
you have to do
like we look at 3,000 sites across the genome. That gives you a barcode. It uniquely identifies the plant. When you sequence a plant to try to generate data that will help with breeding, you need millions of sites.
So I have a question.
We don't do that.
Unless I'm mistaken, what you're talking about is this thing that I've seen on a couple people's Facebook that are heavy-duty breeders that might be participating in this, which is showing a plant, and then it's showing the plants that it may or may not be related to. Is that what we're talking about?
Galaxy, the movable guy.
Yeah,
the Galaxy.
Okay, and so essentially, while I'm somewhat familiar with the project, I haven't geeked out on it maybe at the level of some of the listeners of this program because I'm working on a lot of pretty
geek out.
Well, no, it's not that. It's I'm geeked out pretty deeply on the legislative side of things, trying to fix things so patients can exercise.
Busy.
I am working on trying to make.
Okay. If you're busy, that's okay.
I'm trying to make sure that patients in Colorado can still use their constitutional rights, so that we have a groundwork for all patients in the nation to establish that their constitutional rights are not usurped by a recreational market. But,
Okay, fine. Forget about the Galaxy for
what does she know? What does she know?
But in spite of all that, I do familiarize myself with what's going on, especially with breeders that I like and respect. And so I've seen what you're talking about to some extent. And what you're saying is you're using this to kind of, are you gathering empirical data where somebody says, hey, I'm submitting this strain for this testing and this, this record-keeping purpose, but are you also saying, and I'm an epilepsy patient, and I'm using this for this data, and this is, my results or my needs that I'm meeting, or are we gathering any of that data in addition to just the Galaxy? That's really what I'm asking.
We're not doing that. We should be doing that, and we have partners, and we know people who are trying to collect patient-side data and then look at our data that we've dumped into the public domain and try to pair it up, and I think that's going to be really valuable for figuring out what varieties work for what patients.
Would it be possible
we're not doing that ourselves.
Past submittees to be able to just add a note to each one and say, effective for, effective for?
We are creating tools so past submittees can
because that's where I think that this data would be.
And stories about the varieties. One thing I should be clear about is that the real reason why people submit samples isn't probably to advance science, and it probably isn't even because they want to stop people from patenting their strain. The real reason why people do it is because they want to be able to say to their customers, this is lemon haze. Mm-hmm. It really fucking is.
All right.
That's so simple.
You had me and you lost me. I was excited about science.
I was going to give you a bunch of land races that have been picked from hand around the regional, around the whole world, and then use those as like something to bounce off with all these milkshake strains, as James calls them.
Great.
And that would help, right? Honestly, you want to base.
Oh yeah. So right now we're working on a land race only Galaxy, because right now the land races are so different than all the polyhybrid shit.
Right.
That they're off in their own sector of the galaxy because they're really different, and all the polyhybrid stuff is so similar in some ways. So we're working on a land race only Galaxy that Rob Clark has been driving us towards, where you can actually see the different geographical regions start to pop out and cluster together.
Right.
So yeah, the more stuff we have like that, absolutely, the better.
Cool. I'll get to do this thing.
Sounds like it's going to be a fun
Fucking
site.
Out.
Two has been rolling
We got
joints
Africans
steady
and
through the whole
Middle
fucking
Eastern,
show.
all kinds of weird shit going.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Well, cool.
We're still trying to tell this story about how cannabis evolved, that because we've been so inundated with all of this modern data, it's hard to tease that story out. It really is.
Yeah, no, it gets worse every day.
But you don't see relations between polyhybrids and you don't see like them leading back to their land race genetics.
So we do, but we can't tease it out right because I hate looking at the real data because the real data is just the real data and I can't do anything to it. But
That's like
so
a man.
All the land races cluster together because the polyhybrids are so similar that the clustering algorithms make them all cluster together. And so then all the Colombian and all the Afghan and all the Thai are in their own cluster kind of to the side.
Mm-hmm.
So we can see which ones in the polyhybrid cloud are closest to those. But, I had hoped that all of the land races would be sort of on the outside of the galaxy, and you'd be able to see, even in the polyhybrid cloud, which ones are on the Thai side and which ones are on the Colombian side. And it's not like that yet, and I'm hoping we just don't have enough data. And then when we do have enough data, it will all snap into focus a little more.
Right. Cool.
Right on.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I'm out. I'm going to go listen to this. You guys have a wonderful day.
All right.
Later, too.
Thanks,
I don't have anything else to say. I'll talk to you guys soon. Later.
All right. Go back to hemp growing. Now,
Geek out.
He's got all his stuff's going to be half hemp now, so we know that. Just by any seeds you get from Two's weed, bunk.
Such a dick.
So anyway, we're going to try to wrap you guys up in the next few minutes because I know you guys have been on the phone for a while, and I got to also have the last rant from this woman here. So
I got so much.
Yeah, you got to make the time for the last rant.
Yeah, exactly.
Got to
keep that time for the last rant. So, as the article sort of said in the end, we're still kind of left. It was a little open ended at the end, huh? I mean, Amanda.
Open-ended, yeah. I mean, we got sort of more information at the end from the lawyers of this guy, Sean Sedegaard. It sort of seems like potentially there's some large multinational public company that has some kind of interest in cannabis intellectual property that he's involved in. And who's that? Who could that be? That's very strange and a little scary.
Right. I always thought, first I thought Soros right away. I was like, Soros got to be Soros. But no, then again, didn't seem to go in that direction. Obviously, we would have thought of that billionaire. That's the one billionaire that always comes to mind when it's weed and any kind of weird. Could go either direction. He seems to be that kind of guy who's backing every side.
That's exactly what he does.
Like all this,
every side.
Back all the sides, Antifa one day, and
either way I win. That's what he figured.
Right. Or give them all the same T-shirts, just different T-shirts, and go.
How much more? He can't even live long enough to spend the money he's already got.
Oh, but he'll figure out a way.
No. One thing I'd love to offer is just that even if it's this group or groups that have yet to be contemplated, there's clearly a threat and a real opportunity at the same time for us to work towards a visionary solution. And I'm really grateful for the time on the show because I think most people, as soon as you add heavy science and cannabis, have sort of really strong knee-jerk reaction and immediately get sort of images of Monsanto plaguing them in the night. And it's just, I feel like Mowgli has said that ultimately we are so far behind in cannabis science in many important ways that will really feed the best ethics and practices in the industry that it is important to kind of educate people about the reality that if you get your plant genotyped, that does not mean that Phylos can then reverse engineer that plant. I literally had a conversation 2 days ago with a prominent testing lab that had exactly that statement. They said, we don't trust this process because we think they'll take that data and reverse engineer special plants. And I thought, wow, there are so many different things we have to now explore. Like I have to do that's an hour of education to kind of walk them down about how process works and how micropropagation and tissue culture is distinctive from, a handful of markers that make a clear distinguishing cultivar.
Jeremy, we spent 2 years trying to explain to people that wasn't scientifically possible, and it didn't work. And so then we just made all the data public, and then everyone had access to it, and that seemed to work better.
For a little bit. For a little while. Yeah,
it works a little better, but I want to say that actually this will be a theme that's in a prominent display at the Emerald Cup this year in Santa Rosa, California, where this has been, of course, in the last couple of years, we've been a part of that dialogue at that presentation. But I think this one is going to be special, because in some ways we'll do our very best to reanimate Amanda's piece and to bring some of these characters together to actually have an intelligent dialogue, probably with attorneys present, to actually do our damnedest to kind of educate the community about these issues at a deeper level, because if people remain on the sidelines and don't participate, don't protect their work essentially by illustrating that it's out there and kind of wait while, meanwhile, really aggressive companies are investing heavily in giant IP strategies and hoovering all this up, I think we get sort of the worst outcome. So I'm just excited for people to become a little bit more comfortable with the notion that we are at a place where we need genotypic and chemotypic data. There are good ways to use intellectual property and ways that are harmful, and that we have to become more sophisticated at this point. So I really hope Open Cannabis Project can be a significant resource for people who are looking for that. We'll be working on public education and a lot of other outreach tools. But bottom line is this is a wonderful point of outreach. And thank you so much for including me. Thanks for including this project. And It's great to be with you all. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon.
That was great. Thanks.
Adam,
for the education.
Adam, you're the best. We appreciate it a lot.
Right. Well,
let me say one more thing about ag before I sign off. So, two quick things. One is that, like, we're spending all this time talking about patents and how to fight them and how to balance the different needs that people have and all that stuff. But in some ways, like, we're looking way ahead. The enforcement landscape around patents for cannabis right now is non-existent. So you can get them, but no one's going to be enforcing them anytime soon. And so we have this window as a community to just decide we're going to do things differently. We really do, because all that money that people have invested in patent protection, it's scary, but it's also like no one's going to back them up on that right now. And if we start making lots of things open and available and doing things in a different way, we have the opportunity to. And there are industries where innovation happens so fast that patent protection just is meaningless.
Yeah.
Because people are constantly. So if we drive this industry into a frenzy where everyone's breeding crazy new stuff all the time, you're not gonna spend years getting a patent, because more people are going to be coming out with new stuff all the time, and that is a better thing for plant diversity over time. Because what Big Ag did with all the other crops is they drove their plants towards these elite cultivars that were higher yielding, and they forgot about all the diversity that they'd come from, and they let all that diversity disappear. And so now food security is paradoxically even more vulnerable. We have these high-yielding plants, but they're all the same, and they could be wiped out by one pathogen.
Yeah.
So what we want to do is make sure we don't make that mistake with cannabis. We have to encourage breeders to make crazy new stuff, but we have to preserve all that old diversity at the same time.
Yeah, well, thank God we have so many people out there dedicated to do that.
Yeah.
That's the most important part, It's like, and even when it was illegal, there was plenty of people who were,
Keeping
smart
genetics.
enough to think about the future on that. Yeah. So there's stuff out there, and it's pretty interesting times now too, because there's a lot of people who, it's like all those things we think are lost or whatever. They're not lost. They're just like lost in somebody's drawer somewhere. It's just going to be pulled out and cracked, or the fridge or freezer.
They're still in the fucking
and so the
stitching of a shoe that's somebody's mom's basement still to this day.
Yeah, well, compared to corn and stuff like that, which is like now obviously like the biggest business in America when it comes to ag, and pretty limited as far as unfortunately, I don't eat a lot of corn anymore because of GMO. There's nothing left. There's not even there's not one bit of corn left that I can trust. It's like so. That just shows you how quick that happened. You know what I mean? That was like, oh no, it's maybe this. Now it's just like, nope, it's everything. Everywhere.
Well, I mean, in Colorado, there are over 70 registered cannabis industry lobbyists. Which is just ridiculous. What? Are you laughing at the number, or how few?
Yeah, the number. That's crazy.
Oh, and the fact is, they're pulling it all. It's like.
There are 5 or 6 different like monster businesses. Like LiveWell has 7 different lobbyists just for fucking LiveWell.
Oh man!
And so this is why I attend all the. I agree with what you said about getting involved. Getting involved is super super huge, but like there's so much to get involved with to understand where our rights are getting taken away at the state level, at the local level. One of the things I'm here to talk about today is that the police departments in the state of Colorado got given a pilot drone program, so a bunch of police departments all just got drones.
Oh, fun.
Saw the first
Before
one.
Christmas even? Jesus.
I know. Well,
I got a message.
It's back to school time.
Right.
I got a
Everybody
message
wants new
today
toys.
on Facebook where the dispensaries in Colorado Springs, some of them were getting raided. I don't know how accurate that was. Probably, I can honestly say the person that posted it is pretty honest and accurate. So
I haven't
more
been
than
able to get
likely-
on any kind of
More
media
than
all day.
likely,
My
there's
phone's been
some
blocked.
merit to it. Meaning not just one. I think more than one probably got on that list.
Do you think this is related to John Souther's meeting with Department of Justice
I
officials?
absolutely do. I absolutely do.
All right, so we're gonna.
Let's say goodbye to our phone guests before we segue to the fucking local state of affairs.
Nice getting to know you folks.
I really
and
enjoyed
learning
asking you guys questions too.
Yeah.
And I have enjoyed.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, it's been awesome. We'll
Yeah,
have you,
honor
we'll
to be on the
definitely
show.
look up your
Thanks, everybody.
galaxy and your
have you guys.
project.
We'll probably have
Over
you guys
and out.
all
Be
back
good.
on at different times, whatever, and maybe at the same time again. Who knows? Talk soon. And Amanda's off too, or she's still there? She's off. Oh. Well, thank you, Amanda Chicago Lewis. You can see her articles in Rolling Stone and in GQ. She just did one article. I don't know if she continues doing it, but definitely she's doing like a whole bunch in Rolling Stone, which is always good. Good read. That's like at least whenever I had people from Rolling Stone interview us in like Amsterdam, and it was always like good people because you know they're going to write it right.
And they actually ask questions.
Yeah.
And I had intelligent questions.
The very first interview that I had was in '93 with Michael Pollan. Was working. Was
hilarious.
Was New York Times. So he was like New York. So I was like, oh, New York Times. That's great. And he interviewed me, and then he sent me like a personal apology that my partner still has, my business partner from Amsterdam still has on the wall, which is like from him where he says like, they fucking fucked my article up, and at least I got your picture in and a couple little blurbs, but I had a whole piece for you guys, and I was like, yeah, it's cool. And then later once I realized who he was, I was like, damn, that guy's awesome. Like that was the best guy ever to have as a first person interview, because I totally look up to him now as like a sort of
an awesome author.
Yeah, like a hero in that zone,
Journalist.
because he's the smartest guy that I've heard as far as food goes and agricultural, like what's going on, and so I was like, oh, okay, so it wasn't like just some lackey who came over there and was like, yeah, whatever. And I was like,
I had kind of an opposite experience with The Economist, where they actually gave me a really good interview and they published a really good article from it, but then they put a picture not of me with it, but of a picture of a cannabis shop in Vancouver. And there was a sex worker in front of it.
Oh boy!
And she had dark hair, so this was really great for me because I wanted like all these people who I had known and grown up with to see the article.
Yeah.
So I had only read it online because I hadn't gotten the actual copy yet. So I told all my friends, like, go out to the newsstand and buy a copy of The Economist.
Oh,
and then you open it, and there's the article, and it's a great article. And it's like, it's like not super long. It's not too long for the average American with an 8th grade education to read it.
5th grade attention span.
Exactly, and then there's a picture, and it's just a random they never asked me for a picture.
yeah.
Right.
And I didn't think that they would, and I didn't.
But why was it Vancouver? We were at Vancouver.
I don't know. No, it was just that was a stock photo of a dispensary, and it happened to be in Vancouver. And it's.
See, that's I get the opposite.
And it was in some district where there were hookers and such.
Yeah, I got used my stock photo with
it was awesome.
From the first show that I did with James Bean. Some guy from Reuters was there taking photos, and he got a photo of me, side shot, in front of a sign that says cannabis. So they used it because I was wearing my like camouflage weed pattern thing, and I had my hat on and a beard.
You were being all subtle.
And so they were like, "Oh, that guy is perfect, right?" So they used it, but they used it in all the weirdest shit. Like I'd be like, "This is like some gay something, which is like new law. Gays are allowed to go to the park after midnight." I was like, what the hell does that got to do with me? You know what I mean? It's like, I was like, what does that have to do with cannabis and that picture? And then they were like, there's always these really weird.
You meet this guy, you're going to suck a dick later.
It was something like that. I guess
which would work for me, but I don't know about everybody else.
That could have been the reason. But no, it was just like the perfect stock photo for people who are like, stock photo, cannabis guy, beard or something. I don't know what they were. I don't know what they had.
I have been the stereotype, and I was used in some marketing pictures for some music festivals.
I can see that.
In that cliched way of.
Because you had your big glasses on, and you were like, they were like, oh my god, this chick's like a festy chick all
right,
day,
and then they start talking, and they're like, will she ever fucking shut up about the state of politics?
All right, let's talk about politics. We got about half hour.
All right, so here's what's happening.
Half hour.
I brought you some chocolate.
Oh, I'm hungry right now.
This is a new product. This is as weak of a product as I'm willing to make. You get 5 25 milligram products in a little bag, and I call it mustache rides and salty nipples.
Oh yeah.
And you get a mustache shaped thing. You get a variety of different little flavors.
I'll save the nipples for my wife.
Well, the mustache is like a cayenne and cinnamon thing. Just try one. They're all like 25. The white ones are CBD 1:1. The rest of them are just THC. I think that's a caramel filled one. I don't fucking know. I don't fucking know.
I'm a crunchy one.
Oh, all right, whatever. I don't know what's in them all.
It's got crunchy caramel somehow.
No, there's a crunchy one and the caramel one. They're different. Anyway, I digress.
It doesn't taste at all like weed. Nah, it tastes like weed.
It does?
Of course it tastes like weed.
It's subtle, though. It's not like a fucking over the head. All right, so my follow-up statement is while you eat candy, I can ramble on for a minute. Here's the things I've been working on. I've gone to the med rulemaking. I have been working on the summer legislative session stuff for the state. Basically for there's 9 interim legislative sessions. 4 of them are about who we're going to lock up next. We'll talk a little bit about that. Some of it's about the opioid crisis. I attended the trial for the murder trial for Keith Hammock. I don't know if you guys followed that, but he was the gentleman in the north side of Denver, and basically he was he had 13 plants in his backyard. Some kids jumped his fence. He shot out his window, and somehow 2 kids ended up dead with 3 bullets in them, but he only fired 4 bullets. So somehow in the dead of night in the dark, he's this master sniper, and the police never followed up. I just recently actually received
What do you think the reality was there? You think somebody else was involved? Or?
Oh, I definitely do. I attended the trial every day of the trial because I actually knew Keith for I knew him for 17 years before all of this happened. So when I saw in the newspaper that, this guy was accused, I was like, oh, fuck, this is going to get, reduced down to black man shoots kids.
Right.
And it's not going to have anything to do with the fact that, of course, if he was white, the story would have been dismissed, as 3 other cases in the state of Colorado within the last 2 years have occurred that never went to a trial, much less a trial for murder 1. They said in his trial that he put those plants in his backyard as some sort of premeditated, sociopathic bait to lure anybody back there to shoot and kill.
That's crazy.
And that the whole thing was premeditated. And I'm like, how could a premeditated act of a 14-year-old and a 15-year-old jumping over your fence into your yard where your grow is? And this is why I wanted to talk about it here, because the community that listens to this show are growers. And they all sit there, and I know there's a lot of tough talk out in your audience, and a lot of white boys with guns sitting there being like, I'm going to cap somebody's ass.
Right.
But the reality is this 50-year-old man with 13 fucking plants, 9 in the ground and 5 or 6 in
pots.
Yeah, and Home Depot buckets.
Right. Yeah, not even big plants.
And so they found a Home Depot bucket. The police found a Home Depot bucket 5 properties down from his property in a backyard of an abandoned building on the night that these 2 kids were shot. So there were obviously, if these 2 kids were shot and the one kid was paralyzed and the other kid died on the scene, somebody else brought that plant down the alley. But the police chose not to check that bucket for blood evidence, for DNA evidence, for fingerprints, or for anything to prove that it was related to the plants in the yard. They just happened to say, oh, there just happens to be a separate matching Home Depot bucket with a plant at the exact same level of maturity down the alley in the building behind an abandoned building.
Right.
And there's a trail of leaves leaving from the house, from the yard. And so obviously these 2 kids had at least thrown a couple plant buckets up over the...
Yeah.
There was another one right where the fence was, and
or they pulled one out and left it. They had left the first one and went back to get more. And
No, he said that he saw the shadows of 5 or 6 people, but of course they tried to discount and discredit his testimony.
Okay.
And he believes that someone else. I mean, I actually just received from him a letter from jail because I had attended all of his trial. with all of his notes from the trial where he says, even what his public defender is saying is like a crock of shit and is not, that they tested him and they didn't find gunshot residue on his clothing, his hands, or his, his person, but they're saying that, the gun was fired from his house, and he admits that he fired shots, but he said he fired, not. And so they basically just, I honestly believe a man that I've known for 17 years, who I know to be a super gentle, kind, easygoing soul, but they actually had the audacity to say that this guy who's like a pretty true Rastafarian and very wholesome guy who has, living in a house with a woman that he's been in a 15-year on and off again relationship with and helped raise her children, that this guy went out and saw 2 little kids in the backyard. And the one kid looked like goddamn Webster when he came to testify in his wheelchair. And I don't say that against him, but he was very sympathetic because he looked like a preteen.
Right.
But the fact is, he was out gangbanging, and he admitted it in his testimony that's what they were up to, was gangbanging, and they were out, looking to steal shit. And so, this kid somehow gets more credibility because you got a jury of a bunch of fucking 8 white chicks named Becky, who all are the between 30 and 40 years old and probably do have kids, but have a kid who's not a teenager yet. So they have this impression of this young guy, and they don't understand what it's like to be the mother of a teenager and how that's completely a different animal than an 8 or 9-year-old. And so I think the basic thing boiled down to that this jury was super millennial, and they got to ask questions at the end of the thing, and they all went nuts on the fact that this older guy in his 50s wasn't sleeping with his phone right beside him or in the bed with him. Now, I'm in my 40s. I don't sleep with my phone in the bed with me, because it's just weird to me. It's a different culture if you're maybe 30 years old, and I think that those people do have the phone right there in case you need to respond to something on Instagram at 2:30 in the morning or something. I don't know. I'll get up and get it when I have to pee, but I'll put it in the other room on the charger or in on the dresser on the charger. It's not right there. No. And so they couldn't understand why he couldn't find his phone and dial 911. Why did he take action instead of trying to call 911 when he lives in the ghetto? And it's well, if you live in a nice neighborhood, you don't understand why he couldn't find his phone to call 911 and was looking for his gun before he looked for his phone. Mm-hmm. But when somebody's in your backyard and they're pounding on your back door and trying to come in through your back door, any normal person, no matter what the color of their skin, will take protective action to defend their spouse and their long-term girlfriend or whatever the hell, the person that they're living with. And so because he didn't tell the police that he had fired shots, they painted this whole story that he was a sociopath. And that he had, because they took him downtown at 4:30 in the morning, and after they told him that they wanted to ask him some questions for a murder investigation, he says, "Murder? You telling me somebody was murdered?" And he says, the cop says, "Yes." Because I sat there and I got to see, this is why I went, because I figured this guy is my true friend. I know him, and he's going to need more than these public defenders. He's going to need somebody who knows who the fuck he is and that he's more than the facts presented in this case, at least for moral support. And if not just for that, somebody who will listen to the facts that's presented in his case and look for a reason for a retrial or a, appeal or anything that we can find. And I saw plenty of them. But basically, they sat there and they tried to say that he had premeditated all of this, that he had a gun ready and loaded, that he had put these plants out there with a cowbell on the fence. So they were in a locked, fenced chicken coop, or a chicken run, a 6 foot by 6 foot by 6 foot chicken run with fence on the top, which is what it says by the law. And then that chicken coop was inside a 5 foot or 6 foot wooden security fence that went all around the property, except for where there was a gate where you could drive a car through, like a normal backyard in an alley off of City Street in Denver. And that was covered with tarps so that you couldn't see through the chain link fence of the fence that was locked with a padlock. So these kids came up over the wooden fence, and my friend said that he saw the shadows of 5 or 6 people and fired into the air. But the testimony from the coroner was that the one young boy who died boom on the scene, the way he was shot was from the side through his armpit and through the bullet rattled around his heart and came out the other side of his shoulder, and the other kid was shot twice from either side of his rib cage. So you're telling me that a man from upstairs in the second story from far away was able to get up under this kid's armpit without hitting his arm or any other part of his, it just seemed very...
It wasn't a diagonal through the body that way. It was more of a straight through and through this way.
Yes.
That don't make no sense.
Well, one of his little homies shot him or something.
I believe that that's the case, that once the one kid got shot and was paralyzed and they couldn't get him, they shot the other. I don't know. I don't really know. But I know that they had a gun with them, and no testing was done on that gun. And so, there was all sorts of crazy details from the whole case. But they ended up convicting him of murder too, which is basically premeditated, not sociopathic murder, but premeditated, like setting up a scenario where you're going to kill somebody. And this is, I think, something that I think people need to be heads up on, because the reason that if he had shot those two kids when they were going out his backyard with a flat screen TV, the DA would have been like, black people, all three of them, rah, and shook their head. But because there were cannabis plants, this was a huge 5-day trial. And, my buddy didn't have anyone but a public defender, and it became a huge fiasco. And so, we're working on trying to get some people organized to, help him get an appeal so that he can, appeal some of the grounds that the public defenders. I approached his public defender after the testimony one day, and I asked her, why didn't you ask that cop when he testified whether or not he was a voice recognition expert? Because he made a totally speculative statement. And she goes, are you an attorney? And I said, no, but did he or did he not make a speculative statement that you didn't correct him on? Mm-hmm. And then in her closing argument, she totally fucking cited what I said. And I was like, bitch, please. This is the kind of shit that outrages me. So, I know we're in a half hour of tight time squeeze, and I won't digress too much about it, but I do think
right, I guess.
there is a certain degree of solidarity amongst growers, and I would hope that people would, pay attention to and follow this case, because this case is only a murder case and is only a murder one case in a sociopathic association with murdering somebody who's in your backyard, not by your choice at 2 a.m, because of the marijuana plants. That marijuana angle was 100% the angle, and his medical card had expired like 7 or 8 weeks before this, and so they didn't allow that he had plants for himself, plants for his girlfriend, and plants for his medical need. That 13th plant is basically their grounds for convicting him of illegal cultivation in Denver, which is being selectively applied here, and because he had a like a lasagna pan with some scrapings, like less than 0.03 grams of some sort of cannabis oil, they charged him with manufacture of cannabis oil, which is another felony.
Right.
So they didn't just charge him with the murder and attempted murder, they also charged him with illegal cultivation of a 13th fucking plant. 1220 hasn't even been put into fucking, it was the city of Denver applying their local ordinance, which is only a fucking ordinance that can only have a violation, like it's only supposed to be a ticket.
Yeah.
But they convicted him as if it was 1220 of a felony. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to go to his sentencing on October 4th, and I'll keep people posted on what I learn, and I'm, in communication with him.
Sounds like it can certainly be appealed.
Right. And so, I'm basically, this is the kind of stuff I'm working on, and I think it's fucking cool to know about genetics and DNA, but at the bottom line, I'm just keeping people out of fucking jail to the best of my ability. So I've been going over the summer to this opioid substance abuse legislative hearings, and I've been to 4 of them. And in the 4 of them that I've been to, it's supposed to be about opioid and other prescription substances that are abused and cause death in the state of Colorado. Mm-hmm. Over the 4 meetings that I've been to, cumulatively less than 15 minutes have been discussed on benzodiazepines across the board, so like Klonopin, Xanax, Valium, all that kind of stuff, which is addictive and does cause problems and does actually lead to withdrawals that can kill you.
Who's that? Is that me?
I don't have technology, so it's not me.
It is me.
It's him. So, but they spent, over the course of those meetings, they spent almost 8 hours talking about cannabis use disorder, which is not deadly, is not a prescription drug. And I asked them, why are you spending so much energy on cannabis? Because they actually wanted to talk about trying to pre-genetically test people in the state of Colorado to determine who might be an addict and deny that person pain medications to prevent the opioid crisis. And so this is what's going on here in the state of Colorado. And it's like, this is the fundamental fight of the drug war to create an other that we can lock up. Because that meeting that I attended where they talked about, let's predisposition screen for genetic, potential addiction and not give that person pain medication, that meeting was not driven by pharmaceutical lobbyists. It was driven by the prison and police lobby. Right. And it was about how we're going to lock people up and how we're going to change sentencing laws. So there's been a big hearing this summer about changing sentencing laws. And this is what I think is relevant to growers and people who are out there who have been following when I've been on the show and talked about 1220, is that they're going to change the felony laws here again in Colorado and make the time that now the felonies that are attached to 1220 will carry more time than they did when the law was passed. And so this is bullshit. And I just want people to know that this is not bullshit happening in a vacuum. This is bullshit that is dovetailed to be a fucking watertight little bit of bullshit. And so essentially, these are the things that I've been working on during the summer. Just I want people to understand that, that when the legislative session stops and all the rah-rah activist people go basically do whatever the hell they do, go to their vacation house, that actually there's still hearings all summer long. But the one good news that I have to offer out of this is that one of the legislators on that opioid panel is Jonathan Singer out of Longmont. And I had kept hearing over the course of the summer from a lot of different patients that he was behind the strings, pulling scenes with the CDPHE with people who were having problems with the online registry. So people who were stuck with the online registry and they couldn't make it work and they couldn't get their card and they couldn't move forward, they couldn't access their medical cannabis, have somehow reached out to Jonathan Singer, including a patient that I work with directly. And so she told me, you need to talk to him. And I cornered him and I said, hey, your name has come up a half dozen times where you pulled strings and then people got their card within 48 hours. And it did. And every single one of these people that said that all testified, he called them for me and it was worked out. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, that's awesome for those 5 or 6 people that I've heard your name drop by. It's absolute bullshit for the 100,000 other people on the registry that are having a hard time because this online registry is actually fraudulent and has all these problems. And to my shock, because he doesn't have a perfect track record of always standing by patients, he sat down and talked to me for 40 minutes and went over every detail of what I think is wrong with that online registry, why it violates the rights of rural patient, why it violates the rights of elderly patients, why taking away the right to use a paper system essentially violates the whole meaning of the Amendment 20 of the Constitution. And allegedly, he may help us to fight that online registry, which is causing so many problems for the patient community. But in the interim, I would say if there's somebody out there who's listening, who's saying, hey, I am a patient, I've been having a problem with this, or my caregiver, and I've been having problems with this, that Jonathan Singer, you can find his address on the legislative website, can help you with that, and we should all reach out to him. And if he gets bombarded by enough patients who are having enough problems, I think it'll make it to where he really cannot, he cannot ignore the forest for the trees and see it's just these few patients.
Exactly.
And so if we have someone who's listening, we need to make sure that our voice is coming through loud and clear. And at the same time, be respectful, because I do believe he is at least interested in talking about helping this situation. And, he's made some mistakes in the past, and I told him that when I sat down to talk to him. I was like, look, dude, here's the bills that you were on the past that was actually bullshit, hurt the patient community, and was bad. And he's like, look, if I did wrong, I'll own it, and I'll work on it. And I'm like, well, then in that case, let's work on this in the future, and I'm going to judge you by your performance on this issue because it's a big issue. Yeah. So, I'm working on stuff all summer, trying to make things happen. I've been going to the med rulemaking, and they talked about on their last meeting the new research licensing, which is going to be really kind of not exactly the spirit of what the bill was supposed to be, but it's going to allow you to take, and this is, I think, going to be interesting. I hope those guys are still listening, because this is going to dovetail in with some of what they're talking about, where you're either going to be able to take a specific strain and grow it out and do clinical trial style testing for a medical condition. Mm-hmm. Do specific testing for a specific strain for efficacy for, basically all sorts of different applications. And the intention was that you could also take a grow and have a homogeneous grow of plants that you could essentially apply a test pesticide or a test agricultural product or a test growth enhancement product to, maybe a microbial. And so this was supposed to be, this thing where you could test these products, but essentially now the rulemaking is happening and it's being conducted by people who are already in the industry. Shocking. And so you don't have anybody who's like worked on crafting this bill so that new people could enter with a low-level, inexpensive license to craft products that were boutique specific, or as it would basically be the illegal opportunity to apply some of what the two gentlemen that were on in the radio portion of or in the call-in portion of the show were talking about. And so there's really not a way to do that. But now they're kind of neutering the whole intention of the bill, because there's not really a way that the industry people are trying to keep it so that there's no way that cannabis can enter any place where you, I, or the other breeders could sample it ourselves. Like, it only could go to a patient. And it's like, well, I don't really want to send something to a patient until, as a breeder, as a grower, as a person who's working on a breeding project, I want to be able to sample that. And so I think this is a real fundamental problem that we're having here with the state, is that, this cannot sample, cannot use on-site clause that the med, they're turning around and using that to say that the breeder and the person who wants to get this research license would be ineligible to take home a sample of what they spent 6 months breeding on. How do you select for phenotype if the breeder cannot, you test the empirical data?
Exactly.
Right.
And so this is frustrating to me, and this is the kind of stuff that I try to work on to solve that solution. That this bill was intended to allow people to do selective breeding so that they would have a product that could go to a specific patient.
Yeah.
But they want to find the phenotype, and they need to be able to at least have some select people within their organization, and there's no ability to niche out and say, well, we're going to have our 3 sample people that are employed in our company, but are also, maybe the owner, maybe just a patient who works there who we really want to test with.
Legislative interference of growth.
Boom! It's legislative interference with research and with
growth,
progress.
Of progress.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so this is why, because I think there's so much interesting science coming from like.
And how much of these research?
What was that guy?
For?
It's Mowgli, and what was the other guy's name? Josh, Jordan.
Jeremy.
Okay, sorry.
Close.
I knew. I was close.
You had the J right.
Anyway,
Jeremy. And
nice young man, very smart.
Uh-huh.
But all of the work that those guys are doing is essentially being thwarted by legislative intent by these people who are in this industry, who have so many lobbyists working to funnel. It doesn't matter if you don't have a patent. If you have all the lobbyists already, you're funneling all the dollars towards yourself. And this is why 1220 was a bill. So we're going to talk about 1220 and how that dovetails with the Med's newly released statistical data for 2016, and then I'm going to wrap up by talking about that cannabis clinician's impairment test that I participated in, because that was pretty fucking kick-ass too.
All right, let's do it.
All right, so the Med released their annual data report like on August 8th, and basically it talks about all what went down in 2016. And let's bear in mind that Barbara Brohl, the now retired, underline, director of the Department of Revenue, who retired 8 days before it was revealed that a Med agent worked for the company implicated in the largest bust in Colorado marijuana growing history.
Right.
But she retired conveniently just before that, before Sessions could ask any questions about her participation in Metric. And I believe that when she retired, she obviously had to have the empirical data from 2016 that I'm about to cite. So the medical cannabis industry had 158,000 plants, and the recreational cannabis industry had 225,000 plants. So they had whatever it was, like points, whatever it was half again. So it was 1.5% the total. So they had 1.5 times the number of plants that the medical industry had. But when it came time to measure the actual pounds sold, the medical industry sold, what was it, like 58 million pounds, and the rec industry only sold 73 million pounds. So it was like 16,000 more pounds with like half again as many plants. And I mean, that right there is like, if Metric is accurate and Metric is giving the state accurate information about the industry and where those plants are going and tracking everything from seed to sale, there's absolutely no way that the people working for the Marijuana Enforcement Division and the Department of Revenue are unaware that the predominant majority of diversion is coming from the recreational side of the fucking licensing. There's no way you can slice that pie where you have 150% and you only sell 8. It was like, what was it? I did the math on it. It was like 8.7% more plants, or no, it was a little more than that. It was like 12.7% more plants. It was a ridiculously low number. So you can't have 150% and only sell 112%. Like either the rec growers are just god-awful, horrible growers, which, I mean...
That kind of makes sense.
I think the fact that the move...
There's a percentage there, at least,
right,
a couple points.
But, I mean, it's not enough to make up the difference. It's clear that the problem is coming from within that sector. And so, it just kind of makes me livid that we're going through the motions of another rule-making session, and one of the rules now is about making it so that if your initial flower of one of the two... So you only have to have your flower tested once every 6 months. Everyone listening out there know this. Industry flower only has to be tested once every 6 months for any given thing. It doesn't even have to be separate.
Per strain or
per batch. So you can have multiple strains in a batch. It's like kind of insane.
Wow.
And this doesn't really give you a accurate testing data. No. And so essentially, as long as you're passing these microbial tests every so often, you no longer have to record the THC data. And so these 6-month tests, if you fail your microbials in that 6-month test, you can keep blasting your shit down with solvents and sending that back to be tested until it tests clean. And it doesn't have to be labeled in any way for the consumer to know this. But the problem is that these private individuals are growing more than 12 plants in their house. Like that's the fucking problem? No, this is not the fucking... The problem is that you're trying to funnel us into buying something that we already know is unclean, unsafe, and we have no real regulatory oversight. And then the last thing which I want to say, which I wanted to ask those gentlemen who were on the show before a little bit about, is in Colorado, we still do not have universal calibration for our testing labs.
Exactly. I had issue with that, the testing and how it's not mandatory on the medical side, but they instituted
still is not mandatory on the medical side.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I got issue with that myself.
Before medical
everybody I tell that, they're
but
like,
yeah.
But
what?
But let's rewind to my level of geek. Irene Aguilar, the sponsor of Senate Bill 15050, which was the first bill to take away our right to grow our plants in our private residence, said that it was okay to take away a medical patient's rights to grow their medical plants in their house because the regulated and tested medical marijuana from the industry was safer than what we could grow in our homes. And that's absolutely bullshit, because she said that in early 2015. It's been 30 months since she said that, and there's still not medical testing that is effective for patients.
No.
Well, not only that, but
they all got a powdery mold.
And how many recalls have there been on the rec side?
Boom! Let's talk about that.
Recall.
So have you noticed that the city of Denver has issued all these recalls that the Med actually never follows up and makes a statewide recall?
Right.
So Dixie's just got recalled by the city of Denver 6 weeks ago for using industrial oils that are intended for cleansers and solvents and not intended for food-based consumption in their mints. So someone cutting corners and being cheap on the internet ordered, orange oil and mint oil that were intended for making like industrial soaps, not like to make a scent, not like a food grade.
Gotcha.
And then this got caught by the city of Denver's Department of Health.
Ouch.
They issued a recall in the city of Denver. The Med, 6 weeks later, is silent. There has been no statewide issue of a recall of Dixie's products. So this product is out there, and the excise tax is being collected on every wholesale sale so you can't sell that batch of products in Denver, but you can sell them to the assholes in Durango, and you can sell
Colorado Springs.
Exactly.
Those guys, fucking those guys.
And so it affected both their recreational...
we have a lot of them there.
But it affected both their recreational and medical products. And I mean, granted, it's an ass product in the first place, but there are a lot of people who are just like, oh, it's discreet.
Right.
And so, people deserve to
they've
know
taken the Starbucks look on products anyways. To me,
but I mean,
they've gotten the hip look.
I think that people deserve to know that this has an industrial floor solvent cleanser product
I'm glad
in
I
it.
don't buy their products.
I don't buy anything from the stores because I can make my own shit,
Right.
and I got some nice weed that IROC grew, and it's fucking good, you know. So like,
Colorado Springs.
There you go. Go IROC.
Yeah,
Go
man.
IROC.
well, you know, we got to give him a shout out once in a while. He
man.
appreciates it out there in his weirdo land.
Yeah,
man.
him and two are just in their own little, on their own
Hey,
little ranches.
don't be mocking rural people.
Rural.
I mean, I actually, going back to this guy's food sustainability, I brought you, you know, everybody brings you organic stuff from their garden. I brought you some organic spring mix from my organic yard garden that I grew out of recycled Grow Boy root balls that I put
Grow
out.
Boy root balls.
What would you call it? I mean, you just go like around in your pickup truck and you gather up the dirt that they're going to throw
Grow
away.
Boy, get over here.
And then you put compost in it, and then
Sure.
the next spring you plant all your. I mean, I got
Every
like,
one of those dispensaries got throw away a whole bunch every
Yes.
grow season.
and it's
So,
chock full of nutrients.
Yeah,
that's
that's
allegedly organic.
Yeah. Well, even if it ain't, if you add your own, you know.
No, I'm
soil
laughing.
To it,
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's supposed to be organic.
That's what I'm saying. Is like if it's organic,
Mm-hmm.
why did I get like 27 pounds of goddamn turnips? You know that in an 8
Who
bite.
the hell-
You know,
who the
like
hell
come on,
knows-
people.
Who the hell knows what's in
They're
there?
like getting turnips the size of goddamn baseballs, and it's not just because I have a green thumb.
So, all right. Well,
All right, so okay, back to my neurosis.
Two more rants.
Don't minimize the quality and content of my neurosis.
No, it's good. It's,
So what was I going to say about? So I'm going to talk about the cannabis clinicians thing, and what else did I have on my plate?
there was some,
Mostly that stuff.
I rewind it and figure it out. But
No, we're good. Let's just skip to the cannabis clinicians, and if I think about it while I'm ranting, I'll divert like I always do.
Go for it.
So I did that. You probably saw on the news that test of driver impairment. So it's a scientific research.
Oh, is
But-
this another one? Well,
This was like a week ago Sunday, so like 10
Okay.
days ago or so. I have so much like aside commentary. I'm going to talk about the science part of it, then I'm going to talk about the bullshit part of it. You know, because I like to diversify my portfolio, and I'm going to call out some people for being little bitches that I have previously also called little bitches. Anyway, Cannabis Clinicians of Colorado, cool organization. They put on this event. You were supposed to show up in the morning without having medicated for like 8 hours, or as I interpreted that, in the condition I would go anywhere that I would normally go. So I got like high before I left the house, like I would normally do. Showed up there, and we had to do a series of like video game style cognitive tests where you were like pugging in like you were supposed to like. So it was also a test of like your general intelligence and your baseline. So like they were testing like how smart are you when you're sober, how cognitive and ability are you to meet and match where you were at that sober baseline. So we came in and they did a blood draw, and they took my blood. I did those cognitive tests. I did a roadside test with a retired police officer conducting it, and he took it to like the full hilt of being kind of dickish to me and yelling at me, and I was like, you don't have to yell at me, you're retired. And that went great. And
this is all video, obviously?
Yeah.
Yeah, they loved it. They were living it. They were loving it.
And then they went out and they took us out to like that Looper bus was
Yeah,
there, and they provided their bus, which was nice of them.
That was good.
And
good move, Looper. Hal.
Yeah,
You mean
yeah,
Hal?
he was there, but then
Hal was there?
I don't know, he got afraid of the needle because I turned around and he was gone.
I bet. Cops and needles, you'd be like, I'm fucking out of here, bro. This is not.
Yeah, no,
my
he
shit.
seemed like he was afraid of the conspiracy.
I could see that.
I don't blame him. He
Good-
seemed like a cool
good
dude.
move.
He had a hot girlfriend. Maybe that was why he left too. You know, I mean, that would be even smarter.
Yeah, he doesn't need to see, people getting their arms
No.
pierced with needles.
I don't have a problem with that. I organized the cannabis blood drive back in whatever year that was. I think it was in 2012. But anywho, so I did all of that, went out to the bus. For the sake of science, I did 25 rapid-fire miniature bong hits within an hour because I care. That's about 5 times what I would normally do in a normal hour of my average life.
Right.
But for science, I wanted to really push the extreme. And after that hour that I sat in there and really did as many bong hits as I did, and even traded weed with somebody else so I could try different cannabinoid profiles to see if that would impact me more.
Yeah.
For science, again.
Of course. Always for science.
I figured an hour in there really, they said, you weren't supposed to just sit in there all day. You have to come back in and do the second round of testing. So I went back in to do the second round of testing, and I did the blood test, and I did the cognitive test. And the first round in the cognitive test, I got like a 92, which they said was a good score and like a high score. And they're like, oh, good luck matching that in the second round. I came back in the second round, I got 100% on that cognitive test, which is like basically like a test of your, it's like, remember Simon?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like,
it's Simon, but it includes words. Okay, so conceptually, but I don't play video games, and I haven't played a video game since like maybe the last time I hitchhiked to like the bowling alley and played Tetris in like 1989.
Right.
But once I got a driver's license, fuck that shit.
Fuck video games.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, come on, you came up in the 80s. We played some fucking video games when we started getting high back in the day.
Oh yeah,
when we got done playing Atari tennis, I was done. I played pinball a lot.
Okay, but
as far as video games.
All right, we're not on.
All right, let's not cockfight over this shit. You know?
I'm just being honest.
But about 1989, I quit playing video games. So this was like the hardest part for me, and I like had kind of stumbled in the first round because I was getting used to the beep boo bop boo, and I told the guy like this isn't working, and he's like, that's a user error, and I'm like, fuck you, it's not a I was like pissed because he was condescending to me because he thought I was a stoner, and
yeah.
Anyway, they did that. Now, I will say the second round of testing seemed like, to a certain extent, it became kind of a shit show because people were getting backed up. So people were doing the roadside test and then maybe not having their blood drawn for like another 40 minutes because the blood draws was taking so long. Because, you got to do it right and be clean and keep it sterile and everything. So I think for the sake of science, it almost would have made sense if they would have had come out to that bus and pulled somebody and said, we're going to take your blood, we're going to run you through these tests all in like a quick, so that we can assess where your blood is at. Because if you did that test and you showed impairment in that test, but then your blood isn't drawn for 40 minutes later, your blood might not be at 75 or 100 nanograms, it might be at 15 again.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And so these are things that I was concerned with for empirical data purposes, and this is actually why I volunteered my time and gave up.
Science.
Well, that's why I gave up my time for science, for weird science at that. But because I wanted to be actually witness to say, okay, well, if the empirical data doesn't show, extremely high levels of cannabis blood nanograms per liter, are not correlated with impairment, I'm going to be somewhat disappointed.
Right.
But what was interesting is after I did that cognitive test and I got 100% on that, they sent me I was pretty quick because I timed myself. I was like, I'm just going to sit on this bus and keep chiefing while a lot of these people hurry up because I had witnessed, I was still in my first round of testing while people were coming back in and it was getting delayed because they were still finishing my testing, la-da-da-da-da. So I was like, all right, I got to wait for most of these people to leave, and they left. Or they came back out to the bus to get high again before they left. And so I was like, all right, when they all come back out to the bus, I'll go in and I'll do the testing. And I went through my whole round of testing within like 20 minutes. So they did my blood, I did the cognitive test, I did good on that. And then I went right in and did the roadside test with the retired cop again. And he said I actually did better after doing 25 bong hits in an hour than I had done in the first round of testing.
Right.
So I thought that was very interesting. I thought that would be something
And they didn't. Did they keep that info or?
I will get a copy of my results, which will show what my cognitive round 1 and round 2 scores were, and what my blood level round 1 and round 2 at the end of October. So around Halloween, I'll get a copy of that test result. So maybe I'll come back and tell you guys whatever that was, and there'll be some other people that did it. But then there was all this kind of unseemliness where when I got there, there's a whole news crew there, and it's all turning into this dog and pony show where this certain activist who testified in favor of taking away a patient's right to grow their medicine in their private residence, who shall remain nameless because promoting her name and her whore husband's name would just be bad. But they're bad people and they suck balls, and they testified in favor of 1220. And their Munchausen syndrome by proxy mommy friend was also with them. And are you shedding a little tear over there? Because you know exactly who I'm talking about.
Exactly, and I'm laughing.
Somebody who's like, after the funeral, I got a haircut and a new handbag.
Oh, boy.
And so she showed up 4 hours late and cut in line.
What was her point? She was going to be part of the deal?
Yeah, they showed up to be part of the study. And so they were there, and when just the dastardly husband and wife duo of glory-hounding usurpers and do-nothingers were there when I arrived. And the first thing I see is that that woman goes running up to a news crew who's there to follow somebody else to volunteer herself to go into the Looper bus, which isn't open yet, to do dabs on camera for a dog and pony dab show, so that her image can be on the news so she can use it for her GoFundMe.
Glory house.
La 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 la. So I don't say anything. I just what fucking. I hate these people. Fuck this. I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. And I did for several fucking hours.
Then what happened?
And then boom
so
goes
much
to
better.
dynamite.
Well, we know me, right? We this is why we have me on the show. This is why we like me, because unlike certain code-switching carpetbaggers, I'm fucking keeping it real. So, I digress. This bitch later had the audacity, like maybe 4 hours later after I watched the whole like thing where she dragged the news crew out there to film her and her husband doing dabs in the bus so that would be on the news, which I thought was pretty unseemly for someone who says that they're a patient advocate to be doing dabs and acting kind of Spicoli-esque for the cameras. But, you know, that's just my opinion, because I don't do that shit. I don't do the media. I don't even do fucking selfies.
Right.
You know? And so they did that. And we all went in. Then Hubby Wubby went and he helped Munchausen Mommy cut in line after she arrived like 4 hours late. So she cut in line in front of a bunch of people, and I was actually one of the 2 people who were next in line when she cut in line.
Ooh. She did not know what she did she?
I don't think she...
You did not do that now.
And so the young girl who I had been going through the whole day with,
I can already see it.
like, started to object and be like, no, she's not supposed to be in here with me. It's supposed to be that, like, nice old hippie lady who's been consoling me about needles for the last several hours, because we had talked about, like, needles, and I was like, dude, I'll be in there with you. It'll be clutch. It'll be fucking chill. Don't fucking worry. So the young girl, so I wasn't really paying attention. I was dicking with my phone because I was waiting in line. I was trying to be patient and not be like, come on, you know, like, I want to go out to that bus and get high, you know. So I was just trying to be chill, and I didn't, like, object when she walked up there or walked over there. I wasn't really paying attention to what she does because I don't really like her, and I don't really want to have any doings with anyone who testified in favor of 1220 because I might say something that is regrettable for all involved. So I felt if I just looked at my phone and ignored them bitches, everything would be fine, until I realized she's sitting in the chair getting her blood drawn after she just walked in the door. And I'm like, what the hell? They're hurrying her up so she can get out there and be on the fucking news. So, you know, let's cut in line in front of the fucking patients. So I, from my chair, just loudly called out, bullshit. And they told me to keep quiet. And Stacy's like, what's the problem? Oh, sorry, I wasn't supposed to say their names.
Oh.
So she's like, what's the problem? I'm like, and I just said from my chair, not yelling, but loudly enough for her to hear me in the next room, you're putting yourself in front of the patients just like you always do. That's what the problem is. She got all butthurt about that. She said, what did you say? And I said, you're putting yourself in front of the patients just like you always do. And Greg came out and yelled at me. Oh, sorry. This fuckers. So anyway.
They bring out the absolute best in you.
Yes, 10 to 12 minutes.
I'll try to beep it.
I never got out of my chair. I'm just sitting in my chair. I fucking calm. My dog is laying at my feet. If I wasn't fucking calm, my dog would not be laying at my feet calmly. You know, like, that's the fucking proof in the pudding. So I'm sitting in my chair, and bitch wife makes some snark-ass comment about, like, apologist comment for the cops, like saying that the cops are our friends today. Oh. And from my chair, again, without, like, raising my voice, but she's, like, standing, like, right as close as this guy to me, so she's pretty close, and she's standing up, and I'm sitting in my chair, still looking at my phone, dicking around, and I said, no, there's never any occasion where anyone who took taxpayer money to subvert the rights of citizens, especially for using cannabis and making private choices about their private lives, is ever okay. I don't care if you turn around and smoke weed later. That's bullshit. It's never okay. You're never forgiven for having participated in the drug war. Because that's how I feel, strongly. Right. Like, I came up when Nancy Reagan was going to steal my car for a damn seed. So I still feel like the people who participated in that on the streets and didn't just rise up and be like, fuck this bullshit, they took a paycheck to be assholes.
I'm a veteran of the drug war, but on the other side, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And so I said, no, that's bullshit. If they took a paycheck to participate in locking people up, fuck them till all perpetuity, until they rot in their fucking grave.
And then fuck them some more.
And then her rebuttal was to, you know, because she's not smart enough to keep her mouth shut, her rebuttal was to say, Well, I applaud anybody who can turn around and change the error of their previous ways. So again, calmly, from my chair, without raising my voice, I said, well, then why don't you start by looking in the mirror and ask yourself some hard questions about why you testified in favor of 1220 to take away the patient's, every person in this room's, right to grow their cannabis in their private residence. And that was all I said. And all of a sudden, Greg comes running at me with his finger right in my face, and he's foaming, literally. This is the third time in public that he has been foaming at the mouth, and these are the people that try to portray that I'm a crazy person. He's foaming at the mouth, and he's like, you don't know what we went through after you publicized that we testified in favor. And I said, well, I publicized that you testified in favor because you don't know what patients go through if you're willing to say that 12 plants is enough for a private residence, and that's a cap that's reasonable. You're an asshole. And I did say, you're an asshole. And he's screaming at me and screaming at me in my face. And everyone's just sitting there like, everyone else is like, this is getting interesting. I
bet.
And all of a sudden, the retired cop that a certain person's wife was just recently making apologies for comes shooting out of the room where he's doing his roadside tests in a crouched position and tackles a certain shitheel. And he and his wife and his entourage were ejected from the scientific study, so I don't think they can use that on their GoFundMe program platform to say that they deserve money for their activism and participation anymore.
Right.
But they did get to be on the news. So they actually didn't get any data included in the study, but they did get to be on the news, so hooray for them. They probably accomplished their goal of the day.
Right.
But for the record, I am not a crazy person. I merely, insightfully, and possibly well-wordedly pointed out that what you did was wrong, and if you're going to go anywhere in public ever at any time and have done wrong and have the audacity to say something asinine to me, there will be a rebuttal.
Boom goes a dynamite.
Rebuttal. Of course. I mean, you're Cheesecake Lady. We know that. We know that.
But I mean,
they should know that.
I don't think I'm as volatile as the reputation. I mean, I didn't raise my voice. I never got out of my chair. I never fucking lost my cool.
No, but as far as, definitely don't fuck you over. That's for sure.
No.
Okay.
Boom! What Adam said, do not fuck me over.
But you didn't back down either.
No, I was not going to back down, and I was not. And he's like, he yelled out before he started screaming in my face. He's like, nobody listen to her. This is a social occasion. This is inappropriate here. And I said, no, it's not inappropriate here. It's a matter of audio record in the legislative record that you testified in favor of taking away a patient's rights, you and your wife both. And so, I was definitely not going to back down. It's like T-ball. If you put the ball on the fucking tee, I'm going to swing.
Tee it up for me. I'm swinging.
I cannot not.
I
cannot not. But they are pretty unrepentant douches, and I felt that the record should be set straight. Otherwise, that study.
Their soul will
so what's getting public? What's going to get in there? What's not?
I don't know. I think it's a kind of a gamble. We're studying.
They didn't film the guy coming out tackling people. They didn't have the.
The news crew apparently was busy doing a dog and pony show of people doing dabs and shit.
That is ridiculous.
It's a circus. I mean, that part was to me kind of unseemly. Like if you don't want to be here to participate just for the sake of participation, this isn't it's science, not news. I mean, I don't know. The whole thing to me is just a manufactured. The whole thing was a manufactured media circus where they tried to present on the news, on the story about it, that it was this big scary thing, and then the media instead of them saying, hey, until we have the data from the study, let's not run a story. But no, the media came in and made a whole
dog and pony show.
Yes. And I told the guy from the news I did not want to be on the news, and then a couple hours later, sure enough, I get a call from a friend I just saw you on the news.
It used to be they'd ask you to sign a release. Now they don't care.
No, you're a participant. I mean, it was part of the release for the whole study because there was that part where they were recording the people doing their roadsides. And so when I did my roadside, I made objection because on my left leg I have a broken femur, and on my right knee I have no cartilage. So if you're going to ask me to stand on my one foot for 30 seconds, I asked the guy. I said, "Well, you pick which foot because I'm injured on both legs. I have everything about the tests that you're asking me to do is inherently prejudiced against somebody who has any kind of physical handicap or physical shortcoming or a disease that causes tremors or bodily,
Any disability.
Physical disability. Yeah, or somebody like me who has a hearing problems can have balance issues too.
Right.
And so, I have no problem with the following the pen with my eye and all that bullshit, but the walking the line
That's always the problem. Walking the
Me,
line.
Johnny Cash.
Walking that line.
The men in my life will tell you.
All right.
It's not my favorite thing.
We've gone a half hour over, so
Right.
should we wrap it up?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess.
You gotta
I
just
guess
come
America's
earlier.
grow boys. You
Come
know, I
earlier.
know, but you know,
Come earlier.
fucking traffic, people, fucking
Traffic,
bullshit.
traffic, whatever.
I
It's
dealt
good.
with traffic last
but
week.
But it was
Got
good to.
15 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't have any witty, rejoinder to follow up. Those are the rants of the moment.
Rants of the moment.
I'm working on shit.
You should do a rant. You should do your own little rant blog that you can.
I had a radio show for a while, but it was far away from me. It was.
What about just a blog? Like a blog?
I think they call that Facebook.
I know.
could,
I just follow you on Facebook.
What am I supposed to fucking paste and cut all that bullshit into one long diatribe where I tell you that
exactly
that I grew you some organic lettuce in my garden and fuck you, America?
Right, like a Dr. Bronner's soap thing. Just kind of paste all together. I can't see what's going on.
I do see the bigger picture. That's why I'm all fucking angry and irritable.
I know, it's tough, right?
Yeah, it's hard out there for a pimp.
So, Rev P, of course, next week here for the Trog show. Trog, of course.
Yeah.
You love Trog. You love Trog. Everyone loves Trog.
All the chicks love Trog.
All the chicks love Trog.
At least the hot ones.
Well, there you go. You're promising a lot. So if you're in Denver, come on through. It's actually though going to be a pretty interesting week because there's that graffiti show going on that whole week. So people are going to be kind of out moving and grooving and lots of art going on. So
moving and grooving
and covering this town with fucking graffiti, which is pretty dope. So that'll be going on all that week.
Yeah, I heard that Banksy got busted.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it was real or not though.
Yeah, that's my question.
Perhaps it was
is it real or
pseudo
is it
Banksy?
Yeah.
A setup involving a patsy.
I don't believe it. I was like,
until he comes out and says, "Yeah, it's me." I don't know. And then I still
how would you know if that was the?
That's my point. I'd still question it.
I could tweet right now that was fucking me. I don't fucking know.
Well, it's actually
I might have an
they've
alibi.
contacted like his manager, the people that sold his art, and they've admitted, yeah, it was him. But
whatever.
You know,
I mean, the good part is
a good way to send off the trail.
But did you see the thing that he was doing in Palestine? Did you see that?
Yeah, that's where they busted him at.
Yeah, it was killer.
There ain't no time for art when you're fighting the
it was
man.
It was the Waldorf hotel.
Yeah.
Oh.
Instead of the Waldorf, and there was like a little hotel, like kind of looking set up that was there, and people came and walked through, and there was a living display or whatever, and you could see the wall right there that they were building. So it was pretty dope. It's like
interesting.
It was very smart, of course. And then they sent in the pseudo guy, of course.
Yeah.
You got to give them that much credit. I mean, I don't know.
Right.
What if it's a collective and they just sacrificed one of their 4 dudes?
That could be it.
It very well could be because most of his art is stencil art. So you don't know.
It wouldn't have
I just work here.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
I did think of one other thing I was going to rant
Oh,
about.
my God.
Like 1 second,
The
which is that
rant never
I did
ends.
go to the arraignment for Mark Peterson and Ron Nyhouse this week, and their court date will be pre-trial on October 9th.
Oh, man.
For their caregiver trial. So
yeah.
Support still needed in that case. That's all. That was quick. That was like not even really ranty.
Okay. And is there a way to get support to them somewhere? Or just Facebook? Facebook. Next Facebook?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there's a GoFundMe page. I'm not one of those people. I go to the courts and I show up, you know?
When you say fucking...
Jeffco Courts, October 9th.
Jeffco Courts, October 9th. Bam.
I don't know. That's all I know is... I just go to court dates and funerals, man. I ain't got time to party.
Well, I'm sure you make a little time here and there sometimes. Sometimes. Barely. I know I barely do.
So I have to get the travel bond.
Travel ready.
It's
okay.
silicone.
So
we'll be here on the 15th.
15th, next Friday. We'll have one more show because maybe we get Trog on the show on that day on the thing. At least
I expected him to get through today, but he never did.
Tell him it's on a Friday, so we might as well.
Yeah, we're opening, and we get you on the big screen, maybe.
Bing, bang, pow, all over the place.
Yeah.
Trog it up. All right, so if you guys are in town, you can come to the show. If not, maybe we'll be streaming. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, we'll figure
if
something
it's streamable, I don't know. Yeah.
The excitement is palpable.
Yeah, it's sometimes better just to keep it all,
Panama woke up. He thought it might be exciting.
It is for. Big shout out to my beautiful wife Cece and little Nick, who's down at the farm at Aces. Shout out to the farm, of course. The farm itself, just the farm. No, the people down at the farm even. Shout out to Murray, Tim, Andy, Ace, obviously, and the chickens and all the horses, all the living things. See you guys next week. We'll and a big shout out to MTI for going long. We went long this one because somebody came late. And we had so many guests, and then we had like a lot of phone-in action. Thank you guys, Ben Ugly, and all you guys from the Open Cannabis Project, and also
I blame 2 for 100% of
and
this.
2 for calling in and stirring it up as usual. And who else? Oh, we had Brett called back again later. Thanks for calling earlier and trying. We got, like I said, if you think 3 hours, it means we got like 10 hours of talking. He's like, we can talk for 3 hours. I'm like, that means at least 10 or 12 more. So call in next week. We'll add another few minutes to it, of course. Chisel away at that story. Also, let's see. I don't know what else we got going on. Something good. Something. I don't know. Who knows? Who the fuck knows? I know I'm not going to LA for that thing with.
That forum?
With the douchebag guy. What's his name?
Narrow that down.
The douchebag. The douchebag. What's his name?
Roger Stone?
Roger Stone thing. Yeah, I'm not doing that. So there you go. I was supposed to go to that.
Did you like how I was able to narrow it down all by myself?
Yeah, Roger, you're like Google. It's like Roger Stone.
Top douchebag of the moment.
He's a douche. Yeah.
But he's not the top douchebag on my radar for douche elimination.
I wanted to get high with him at first. I was like, yeah, that'd be fun to go get high with him and then call him a douche. And you're douche. Because
I don't want to get high with someone. I just want to call them a douche.
Well, first.
And I want to go get high with cool
waste
people.
good weed?
I want to get high with nice people and enjoy myself. And call douches out. Like, that's why I didn't want to go on that looper bus with them married people.
All right, Loopy.
All right.
All right, guys. Peace, and see you guys next week.
Bonsoir.